of us to change the direction of things without, just tearing things down. And that's not been part of the DNA of this organization and won't be.
Injuries aside, just watching this team this year, what were the areas that you think you needed to take a different direction and sort of the aim of, the changes that you were making today and maybe in the offseason? What have you kind of identified watching this year as the places that, need to be improved on?
Well, our power play has struggled all year. And, that's a problem. So we have to address that, but that's both with personnel and systematically maybe and make some adjustments there. So that's been an area that's put some stress on, the overall offensive production side of things, which is an area we knew was going to be potentially challenged, but if we stayed healthy. Now, we set out the fact that every guy that maybe hit some high sides, we didn't predict that they were going to, but we were below that in those areas. Now, defensively is where the concerns started to come into play, that we were not as tight as what we have been in the past. And good teams get through that. You win in those situations, and we have given it up in those situations. Even I go back to the Ranger game, you're in control of that game. You got Vegas, you come back in Toronto. Those are big-time momentum swings that you're firmly in the playoff hunt at that particular time in carrying out what you need to and execute. And we were unable to do that.
WBZ FM Boston 98.5, the Sports Hub.
We don't have enough scoring. Can we not extend a lead? A power play has momentum in a game that says, hey, we can put this away. And it took away at times. And it's not just on the power play. Our penalty killing hasn't been quite as good. So, there are areas that we had underperformance, and we have roster areas that we needed to address. And that's, that starts with me. And the other areas that the players themselves have to take some, and they've taken ownership that they haven't played quite as well. But, at the end of the day, going back mix, we weren't going to just roll it back. And that's probably the message. We needed to turn a page in some regard, and do a better job. And that's what we'll do.
So there's been no announcement on Marchand yet. Is it you get one pick for Marchand, or is there more involved in that?
No, it's one pick.
And was it something for him? You looked at the gap that you had and said, okay, we're going to get the best deal we can get for him right now because you don't feel confident that he would resign after the season? So were you just at that point looking for the best deal available, or was there a threshold you felt like you had to hit to still make it work?
With his injury, it complicates things a little bit. So you're just basically talking to the teams that are willing to take on that risk. In the position they're in, comfortable that he's going to miss the timeline that's likely, and work through it and find out who's willing to take that and do the best job you can for the organization. Ultimately, once the gap was there that he wasn't going to sign, now whether or not we could have taken the time in between now and then, and maybe it changes, but the time leading up to it hadn't, and that's where the tipping point says I have to do what's right for the organization.
Brad, you're such a big personality, big leader on this team. How hard is it going to be to fill that leadership role?
I don't think that, we were replacing in a singular fashion that when Patrice left or Zdeno left, and now when Brad leaves, it's just really incumbent upon everybody. And I would say the same thing when Brad took over as captain, and he did a tremendous job. But you can't do that job alone. You have to recruit, and you have to incorporate other people into the leadership aspect, and we'll need to do that moving forward.
Brad's pick is a second rounder that could be a first. What are those conditions? How does that become a first rounder?
He has to play in the playoffs.
Just one game?
No, he's got to play 25% of the games moving forward in the playoffs, the first two rounds.
Did you underestimate how the elite tandem goaltending that you had last season and the season before, that they may have inflated your view of what this team was capable of with the goaltending you wound up getting, which was probably just could be categorized as good?
I would say that I did not underestimate it. I think at times I said that it was a distinct advantage for us to roll out, a goaltender who was at the top of his game, well rested in every situation that we had, for a couple of years. And, did it cover up? Did it help? Well, we offset that somewhere else. It was a position of strength, and it was. And they fed off of it, and they were very, very good. And, ultimately, we had to make a decision based on where our roster construction was moving forward, and we made that. Have we taken a team-wide step back? Yeah, for reasons as I discussed. Defensively, we haven't been as good. Penalty killing hasn't been as good. And their performance hasn't been what it was last year.
Do you take a more cautious approach to bringing McAvoy back, and whether to bring him back at all this year now, based on where the roster is and the unlikelihood of making?
Charlie's return to play will be solely on his health and what the medical staff, says that he's ready to play. He's a driven player, and he's going to want to play when he's healthy to play, and he's happy to see him start to have a slow progression back onto the ice and, turning the corner, but it'll be a sole medical decision as to when he's ready to play.
But the guys you acquired, who's headed to Tampa they'll be in the NHL roster, who's headed to... Is Minton going to be NHL right away?
So Kuzadinov and Lauko are in Tampa. Middlestad is en route to Tampa. Fraser Minton is actually in Providence because they were playing the Marlies tonight. With unfortunate immigration, he can't change locker rooms like maybe they do in the old days and play for Providence tonight. But we will get that sorted out in short order.
Looking at Minton's skill set, what do you see from him that you think he can be part of in this next wave of talent for you guys?
Again, has a lot of the Charlie Coyle qualities. He's a left shot, but he has matchup capabilities. He's got physical strength. He skates well, shoots the puck well. Leadership roles that he's had in his previous team. And talking to the people that have been around the Marlies and the Leafs now, he's a confident kid in that regard, comfortable in his own skin to go out and play to the level and to his skill set, albeit wants to continue to improve. So we're excited about what his upside is.
So when you look at that trade, was that more, Carlo has terms, Bill, it's a pretty affordable contract. Was that Toronto being eager to make that move, or are you guys targeting Minton or a combination of both?
I think it's looking at the whole landscape of how many teams were involved in adding defense and where we could maximize. Ultimately, that's what usually it comes down to. Obviously, it's curiosity that it's Toronto and in division, but Buffalo and Ottawa made a pretty significant trade in their own right today. So I think some of that has been dispelled in terms of maybe not a idyllic trade partner. But yeah, Fraser's further along in terms of where the development of other players were, and it wasn't just as we tried to identify, it wasn't just about draft picks and draft capital. It was finding players that were in areas of that we wanted to address with our organization, and we've tried to do that.
The fact that you did so much over the last couple of days, how much of that do you think was shaped by just the market and the really good returns that were coming in?
It was an aggressive market all the way around. You really saw some teams even making one or two. They were, and we've done it. We've been right there in terms of, only one team's win, and we certainly didn't when we really loaded up in that sense. But even in 19, we went after players, and even adding Johansson late in that, that deadline side of it, it was an area that was like, boy, we could really address the depth side of it. So I actually applaud teams when they do it. If they feel like they're in a position, then they should go for it. That's what this league is all about, and trying to win.
How long had you anticipated Brad being out?
His timeline, is probably 3 to 4 weeks.
Don, how involved was ownership in these discussions this week about going this direction, cutting this deep, and how supportive are they of this direction?
I mean, the ownership has always been supportive in the mandate of getting better. Ultimately, when you're not in the position you need to be and are expected to be, then what are the changes you can make first and foremost, and the ones you want to make is paramount, because those two things sometimes are different. Sometimes you want to do things that don't materialize, and you have to wait and be patient. Ownership was acutely aware of every move that we're making for the right reasons that we hope all turn out, and we know we're sort of taking a step back in the course of the season because we haven't been to the level we need to be, but the mandate is like, hey, let's get this right. and make the right decisions moving forward. And today was part of that. It wasn't coming in today and saying we're doing every one of these moves. They have to present and materialize. And to Hags's point of saying teams were aggressive, and does that present an opportunity? And it does. It doesn't mean you have to pull it and execute it, but it does present an opportunity, and that's what, that's really what our fan base needs to hear, that we're trying to put things in a position where we're right back in that competitive mode set very next year and doing things right.
How have you felt Joe Sacco's done this season, coming in sort of November? How have you felt he's evolved as head coach?
I felt bad for Joe, obviously, last night in talking to him, because I thought the team played well, and he's even admitted that he's, trying to get them to be at that level on a consistent basis has been at times challenging and perplexing, and as all coaches go through that. That's the inconsistency piece that our team has unfortunately gone through, and, obviously missing Hampus and Charlie and, key players are a part of that. But that's a dangerous environment to go into last night, and they played very well. We didn't get the result we wanted, and that's what Joe is ultimately frustrated about. But that's how he looks at things. Now, today is a real, in some ways, personal relationships that he has with other players. He's had a long history with those players. So it's you upset the apple cart in Joe's world today. Now he needs to pick up the pieces and, work back through where guys are going to play, what their strengths are, and how they can help us tomorrow. And he's been good that way, really good.
Will anyone wait to see?
No.
This team is sort of a mix of a lot of different qualities. You said that, if you did your job, they'd be fine. You made a coaching change, now captain's been traded, 2 guys from Tournament been traded. What do you want the identity of this team to be moving forward? Do you think it has to change from what it's been for, the franchise's history for the last recent 20 years or so?
I mean, we thought we had a very good team a few years ago, and, we didn't get it done. If I could duplicate that team and take another run and learn from what we did not right in the key moments, I'd do it. Like, they could play any style game. They stuck up for each other. They scored better than what this team was capable of this year, in my opinion, and how we executed. Power play is part of that. We had 2 units that sort of pushed each other. So, yeah, there's an overall depth aspect of that. There's a commitment to defend and execute. That has to be part. If you look at the best teams in the league, and Edmonton did it last year, they recommitted. They can score. They have 2 of the best players in the world, but they committed to defending last year. And Florida did it 2 years before that in the middle of the season. And they've added to that. And you can get that momentum on your side if everybody's bought in. But you have to have that philosophy. So stylistically, Middlestats is a departure to some degree. Thinking about trading Charlie Coyle and the identities that he brings to the table and what Middlestat might, they're different players. And we've been void a little bit of that. So we're taking that opportunity with a backfill that we think Fraser Mitten can hopefully come in and do some of those things. That may have been a departure. We're clearly not, when you lose Charlie, he's a primary penalty killer. He's a face-off guy. Obviously, Lindholm has picked up a lot of those things, so he has to. Now you see Geeky's actually, doing a good job in the power play. Does he go on and help that? But now we have another left shot guy on a half wall. And those are the things we're trying to identify in deficiencies and identify who's available and bring them in.
Do you feel like Geeky was a guy that was going to be part of what you were building toward? Do you feel like what your opinion of his value, in his opinion, of his value is as a restricted free agent are close enough to be moving forward together?
I mean, Morgan, he's done a great job, obviously. We've been presented with he's earned, not just presented, but he's earned more opportunity. Now he's riding shotgun in a very productive line, and he's taking advantage of it. It's great on him. Can he continue to expand his game and be one of the building blocks and core pieces moving forward? That's what we're going to try and find out this summer in contract stuff. We did try, and we've tried with Freddie. People have reported that we weren't excited about signing Trent. We were in long talks with Trent on a long-term contract. We just didn't find the common ground. And again, that's okay. Players have their rights, and that's perfectly understandable. When you're going through it, and also location of where a player may prefer to play. It's all part of the process. So going back to Geeks, he's identified this is a place he wants to play, and that we got work to do to find a contract, and that's what we'll do. I believe we'll get one done.
You wound up using him as a second-line center at the end of last season and for the playoffs, and he did very well. It seems like one of the best things you've done as GM is identify players that are out in the league somewhere and elevate them. Zaka, perfect example. Do you anticipate yourself, now that you've said that this is not a tear down, it's not a rebuild per se, of being aggressive at the draft or at the during the draft or during the July 1 and trying to identify more guys that you can pick out and try to get them to another level on this team to kind of try to fill this out now?
It's what the scouts and stuff do every night when they're at games. They're trying to identify the players maybe being used in a different role. Can he play a little different role in our environment with more opportunity? In case he might be hopefully the next example of that. Wasn't playing on their primary power play. Can he, which he was in Buffalo and doing a good job. So, yeah, those are the areas. The margins are small, and very few of those players necessarily slip through the cracks. It's hard, right? The players are good young players, and so it's difficult. But yeah, that's what you're tasked to do. Again, not to talk about other teams, but Buffalo made an interesting trade today, right? So that's what we made a trade where it's Middlestat and Coyle. They're different players. We have an area that we would like to address. So yeah, 100%. And that's what, the development, the draft, the guys that are in the league are a little further along. The projection might be a little easier, but you never know until you've okay, we're going to give this player a little more rope and a little more of the opportunity and see if he can run with it.
We talked a lot about the on-ice stuff, obviously, that spurred on the moves today, but was there an element in your mind of, in the room, the chemistry mix needing to be shook up, changed, something like that at this point too? Did that play into the number of moves and some of the guys return and just the vast number of moves that you're going to do?
We have to be very realistic and honest with ourselves to say, okay, we've sort of shaken up the leadership part of what this group has been and how it's grown along. We've done that. Now we have to be hell-bent on finding the people that can complement that, and also, the growth of the internal guys that are going to now be in those. Now, they've been sort of on the cusp of that and the interior of that, and Charlie and David are the two most prime examples, right? So now, can't overload them. How do we surround it? And actually, talking with those guys today, it's like where Shattenkirk and Van Riemsdyk last year, they did a really good job of doing that. So we have to be cognizant. We have to be honest with ourselves. That says, how do we improve in that area as an organization, because it's been a strength of ours. And whether we did a good enough job, whether the injuries factored into some of that, again, Linus leaving from Sway and the tandem part of it, all those things are new dynamics. And now we have to learn from them and make sure we do a better job.
What was David and Charlie's reactions when you talked to them?
Again, those conversations are private. I referenced that I spoke to them because I think it's important that I do as a manager and allow them to share how they are feeling, and I'm the same. So, but I'll leave those private. But I think it's important, given the position they have in this organization, the commitment they've made.
Time for two more. You mentioned the gap between your camp and yourself and Brad. Do you think that gap is impossible to close? Well, do you think that door is shut, or is there still a possibility that down the road the sides could reconvene?
That's probably a better question for Brad at this point in time, and the emotions that he's going through. I love Brad. I've said all along we've been trying to sign Brad all year long. We just, we had a gap there, and I respect that, where he believes his market value is, and I hope he respects our position because he's beloved here. I would never close the door.
Your mouse? You had a defenseman going to Tampa, or you want to start right now?
Joka Harju Henry's on his way there as well. If I left that out, I apologize.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
General Manager Don.
All right, that was General Manager Don Sweeney. Wow. What a day it was for the Boston Bruins. We're going to react to it. I'm sure we have a lot of bills we have to pay to make up for Sweeney talking, so we'll certainly get to that. We will get to the opening take, which is brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. So we'll get into that. But a big trade today, and the biggest news, Brad Marchand traded to the Florida Panthers. Go figure, of all teams, Brad Marchand going to Florida. We'll tell you the other players that are on the move as well. We got a full show tonight. Skaz is here. We got Street Team Joe with us. I'm Joe Murray. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe. You're listening.
just had a gap. Deep down, we had been talking, really from day two, I think, of free agency in terms of what his intentions were and where we were at. And we always had a bit of a term gap that took us a while, and felt that we had been able to bridge that. But again, a player is more than entitled to have an understanding of what they think their market value is and do what's best for them. And I have to always respect that. There's never, an ounce of me that won't respect what that player thinks is best for he and his family. And that's the decision that was made. And then we had to make a really, really difficult decision to say, well, let's give Brad another opportunity, with a really good team. And then he can make his decision, as to what he thinks is best moving forward.
All right, back here at 98.5 The Sports Hub, I'm Joe Murray. We're here all night long tonight. We're here till 10 o'clock. Phone lines will be open all night as well, 617-779-0985. It was trade deadline day. That was Don Sweeney just talking about giving Brad Marchand another opportunity. I think it was the best outcome for the Bruins, moving on from Brad Marchand. The return we'll talk about throughout the night, but I don't care about any of the returns. I'm glad that ownership gave the green light, but I'm also glad that Don Sweeney made the moves. I was curious if they would. Last night, they traded Justin Brazeau, and I was like, oh, these are going to be the moves they make. Like Trent Frederick, that was a good trade. Good trade. But the Bruins blew it up today. They moved on from contracts and players and they needed to reset and build it back up, and hopefully they can do that. But gone is Trent Frederick. Gone is Justin Brazeau. Charlie Coyle out the door. Brandon Carlo and Brad Marchand. I'm not sure if people should be shocked by it because we've been talking about it for a while. There had been talks about a contract extension. In the end, the Bruins traded someone they had to move on from. It was the right move. I'm sure whatever the future holds with the players in the return, we'll get into that. But this is something Sweeney had to do for the organization. I think he's fighting for his job too. And this was going to be my opening take, brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Did Don Sweeney do enough today to keep his job? We can look at the return, but as far as what was in the best interest of the Boston Bruins in their future, Don Sweeney did his job today. He did his job today. Makes me think he'll be back. I don't know if he's the guy to make the selections at the draft and use and actually make selections with those picks. I don't know. Do I think they're in this mess because of Don Sweeney bolstering the teams like every other team did today around the NHL that's in the hunt? Yes. But making the move today, I credit Don Sweeney and ownership for doing it. It was the right move. So we're trying to get back on clock. We'll get you guys can call in at 617-779-0985. We're also on YouTube. I see all our friends in there right now talking about it. We do have to hit a headline. We're going to talk to Conor Ryan coming up in a little bit. We'll get his thoughts. I know Ty Anderson's been on a couple of stations and he's at the press conference. So we're going to talk to Conor. We'll get his thoughts on everything. I think he's there as well. And the 6 o'clock headline was brought to you by the New England Revolution. It's match number 2 of the 2-match homestand for at Gillette Stadium for the Revs. And taking a look at it, they'll take on the Philadelphia Union this weekend. Kickoff set at 7:30. You can get your tickets to the Eastern Conference Clash now at revolutionsoccer.net. So we'll hit the headline quickly. We'll take a quick break, and then bing, bang, boom. We're here all night till 10 o'clock. I'm Joe Murray here in the Sports Hub.
Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
All right, NHL trade deadline day. The Bruins were busy. Just, 18 seconds left in the game, broken stick, right in front of the net, goal. Like, the way that thing went last night, that showed what the season was. Just, that's what it is. And I'm glad they made moves today. So, let's get you caught up on a couple of things. The big move for Brad Marchand, it's official. Florida gets Marchand. Boston gets a conditional draft pick. It's a conditional second-round draft pick, but it will become a 27 or 28 first-round draft pick if Florida wins 2 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, and Marchand appears in at least 50% of the team's playoff games. Ooh. That's interesting. Let's just leave it at a second-round pick. I'm fine with it. There was a gap between the two sides, which I think is something that we should mention. I know Sweeney mentioned this. I love Brad. We've been trying to sign Brad all year long. We had a gap there. I respect where he believes his market value is. I hope he respects our position because he's beloved here. I would never close the door. So the door is not closed on Brad Marchand. Let's get into some of the other deals. And listen, I know when we say these names, sometimes you just have to look it up, right? You have to look up what they actually got. In the end, this is what happened today. Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, and then earlier this week, Trent Frederick, yesterday, Justin Brazeau, Max Jones, and a 2026 fifth-round pick. So that's what the Bruins have moved on from. What they're getting in return, a first-round pick next year, 2 second-round picks in 2025, a fourth-round pick in 26, and a sixth-round pick in 2026 as well, and then the conditional 2027 second-round pick. So in reality, they could have gotten either 1 first-round pick and 3 second-round picks, or 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, a fourth and a sixth. And now, I'm not going to pretend to know all these guys, but Lauko's back. We know about Lauko, his size. He's 24. It's roster filler. Fraser Minton is somebody that people are very high on and plays center and, definitely a high prospect. Casey Middlestad's at least an NHL player. This is his third team now, but he's a guy that plays in the league, can put the puck in the net, and yes, at times maybe hasn't played to potential, but it's a guy that they can groom and play with and see if they can grow. Will Zeller's another forward, and then Max Warner, also another defenseman that's somewhat of a depth piece guy. I know we can look at the return and be like, in or out. I'm in on the return. You had to blow this thing up. You had to move on. The Bruins of 2011 are over. And I think that's the best scenario for the Boston Bruins going forward. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how long this rebuild's going to be. I think their pillars going forward are Swayman, Pasternak, and McAvoy. On paper, it looks really good, right? I still think they can build. They still have one of the best players in the NHL, and I do feel that Jeremy Swayman is more likely to be better than he was this year than going backwards. McAvoy, still considered one of the better defensemen in the league, and here's the deal. If you're out of the mix next year, that's when he becomes available. Maybe that's, I don't know if you'd ever dangle the Pasternak deal. I don't know if a team wants to get into that, but he's a damn good player, and there's always the Swayman thing when he gets back on track. Zacha will still be one of those guys in the mix. But going forward, the reset was the right thing to do. Now, the question I ask is, did Don Sweeney do enough to save his job today? I think so. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not back, though. But did he fight for his job today? Yes. Did he do what was in the best interest of the Bruins' future? Yes. He checked the boxes for me. I know his drafting hasn't been great. I know it hasn't. But as far as I'm concerned, he did what was best for the future of the Boston Bruins. And, you know, I don't know if that came from ownership or whatnot. I'm glad ownership greenlighted it. And I'm glad that Sweeney did it. I'm glad that they moved on from Brad Marchand. It was what's best for this team. It was absolutely what was best for this team. All right, we have loaded phone lines, guys. You want to take a couple of calls? I had to move. The computer doesn't work. So who do we have on line? Well, let's go to let's take some calls here. I know some people are interested in getting on this Marchand thing. Who we got?
Joe, we will head to Seth and Easton on line one.
Seth, what's up, buddy?
I got to tell you, Joe, if Sweeney's job was to lower the payroll as far as he could go, he saved his job. But if it's going to put a competitive product for the next 2 or 3 years, I think he failed.
Yeah. What do you think they wanted to do? Because, Sweeney's really good at acquiring NHL talent. He really is. Now, his drafting, on the other hand, not good. And I think that might be where the organization may also need to reset. So I agree with you. Like, as far as being competitive, yeah, they didn't, get pieces back that are going to make them a playoff contender.
Because I expected them to unload a few players, but I just didn't expect to unload some of our top tier. I'm not saying NHL top tier, but our top tier, and basically come back with nothing. Because who's going to be on the ice on Saturday?
Well, maybe it's now Merkulov and Lysell time, right?
Right. No, that I agree. But why would you go out and bring these other people back if you think you got something with those guys? I'd have rather take the picks than take,
listen, the picks, we look at the picks as drafts, right? What if they trade these first-round, second-round picks for players in the offseason and because now they have payroll they can take on?
Joe, from your mouth to God's ear, that's what I hope. But I just don't want to be a suffering Bruins fan for 2 or 3 years.
I appreciate you, man. Well, the suffering, you guys have been doing that for 50 years. And I will say it again. I do think overall you could make a case that Don Sweeney's 10 years in Boston, 9 years, whatever it is a success. I know we judge everything off championships. You could make a case. It's a success. You could. But you can't overlook that draft. That's why I look at it as he may have done enough to save his job. And if the coach, though, that's I know some people aren't looking at that right now, but I do. I think this is play out the string. And I asked this question the other night. Are the Bruins closer to the playoffs or to the lottery? And here we go. It was 5% the other night for the number 1 pick. 5%. It's only going to go up the rest of the way. And I think if you have a shot, you got to take it. Who do we got next, Skaz? Let's pull somebody up here.
Let's go to Jack in Utah, Joe.
Jack in Utah. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Joe. I'm just trying to figure out, how much runway does this buy Sweeney? I mean, his drafting's been bad for a few years. I'm kind of torn on the Marchand trade, but I understand it had to be done. But how much leeway does this give him as the GM?
I don't know, but didn't he have to do this, though? If he's fired, he did everything he could to save his job, right?
Yeah, but Brad Marchand, he's been on this team forever. He's our captain. It just kind of sucks that was the extra piece he had to do.
But I don't know if it's an extra piece. They say they wanted to re-sign him, and who knows? He could come back. That always happens, right?
Yeah, the dream is he comes back, right? Maybe signs for a little less money than he's apparently asking for, and he can finish out his career as a Bruin. But I just this had to be done. The Bruins haven't been able to seal the deal since 2011. It sucks being a Bruins fan a lot of the time, even though we're always in the hunt.
Yeah. Hey, listen,
but
there's no denying that having people like Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, and others on the roster and only winning one championship is a disappointment. There's absolutely no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The only thing I can say about the team going forward here, you still got Lindholm, McAvoy, Zadorov, Peak, like low rise, a restricted guy. They just got the dude from Buffalo there, the Yuki Harju. Is that how? This could be fun tonight. Maybe we can just have me trying to pronounce. What was the guy's last name, Skaz? I don't know if we want to try that one again. What
I believe it was Kuznetsov.
Kuznetsov, but what actually was it though? It was who? Dinov? I forget now. But trying to get some of these names. Woof. All right, let's pause here, everybody. I do have the projections for the roster going forward. And I will look into a little bit more of the trades, and we'll obviously Brad Marchand's tenure with the Bruins is over. He's a Hall of Famer, and we should put respect on the name, and we will certainly do so. But this hour, the Sports Hub is brought to you by Valvoline and Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com. You can save 15% off your next Strata oil change at Valvoline and Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. I'm Joe Murray. We're going to talk to Conor Ryan coming up in just a little bit as well. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe. You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5. You're listening to Joe Murray.
on his way to Toronto, and Brad Marchand traded to the Florida Panthers. It's a reported conditional second-round pick in 2027. It just depends on how much Marchand plays in the playoffs and how far Florida will go in the playoffs. We'll recap the entire trades on the day, but plenty of pieces going out and, well, a lot of picks and players coming back. We have some breaking news in the NFL as well. The Las Vegas Raiders are acquiring Geno Smith from the Seattle Seahawks for a third-round pick. The Raiders reunite Geno with Pete Carroll. And just some other notes today, Shaq Mason released from Houston, Jonathan Allen released from Washington, and Harold Landry released today from the Tennessee Titans. Headlines, they are brought to you by Boston Prolotherapy. Don't let joint pain keep you up off the course, or trail. Eliminate that pain with Dr. Franke of Boston Prolotherapy. I'm Joe Murray. Your next update in 30 minutes.
Here we go.
Boom. I win. Boom.
Yeah. It's so funny. We've got a passion for Boston sports. Get angry. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Through center, had a poke checked away by Ferentz. Loose puck to Marchand. Banks it to himself up the right wing. Marchand going towards the net. He's free. Put it on net and he scores. What a goal by Brad Marchand, shorthanded, to give the Bruins a 3-0 lead. Chara holds the blue line to keep it in. He'll back in it to the left corner. And Marchand with a forecheck, knocks down Ballard. Henriksen had it knocked away by Bergeron. Bergeron chipped it in front. Marchand a backhand, and he scores! On the doorstep, Brad Marchand beats Luongo, and the Bruins are up 3. Recchi left side of the Bruin end. Feeds it up ahead just out of the reach of Marchand. This might be icing. Marchand trying to hustle to prevent it against Salo. Salo took him out. Marchand got there to prevent it nonetheless. And they'll play on. A puck at center. It's loose. Marchand has it with an open net in front of him. Marchand, a wrist shot, and he scores! Brad Marchand for the empty net goal, and a 4-0 lead for the Bruins with 2:44 left.
All right, back here at 98.5 The Sports Hub. Brad Marchand traded. He was a great Bruin. And with all the star power that was here with Chara and Bergeron and others, he fit right in, right? He was the guy that added a little bit of nastiness. You know, definitely got into fights. I think the way that he had to play was that style. I don't want to call him an overachiever, but maybe he was. He's a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. The fact that that guy could have 20 goals in a season for, 12 straight years? He was a great player, but he became the 27th captain in franchise history after Patrice Bergeron retired. Sweeney did acknowledge today nobody else will wear the C for the remainder of the season. I don't know who the future captain will be. We don't need to get into that, but Marchand was a great Bruin, but at the end, they couldn't come to a deal. He's aging. He's had multiple surgeries. Do I think he's still an NHL player? Yeah. Do I think he's more of a third liner for a good team? Yes. But I did not like the idea of an extension. And since they couldn't come to one, the Bruins had to make a decision. Like, there was no guarantee they were ever going to come to an agreement on an extension, even if they played out the season. Who knows if he came back? And with the way that they're playing, he may not have played at all. And then what? In the offseason, you're just going to come up with a deal? They had to get something for him. Now, to be fair, I wanted the Bruins to sell last year. I wanted them to sell last year. I'll give them credit. I didn't think they were going to get to a Game 6 of the second round. But now look at it. If I am going to give Don Sweeney his flowers, you know why? Because he made the moves today. It's not about the return. It's the fact that they acknowledge they need to reset this thing. The players that came back, I don't think they're going to be a big part of the reset, but the picks could be. The salary cap can be. And the players that are still here, you at least have some sort of pillars or foundation. Now, are they probably going to suck and not make the playoffs next year? Probably, but who knows? They had to make this move today, and I'm glad that they did, but if I'm going to be critical, they should have done this a year or two ago. They should have started this reset a while ago. So if you really want to get into the weeds of it, I'll give them their flowers today, but they should have done this a while ago. So I've at least been consistent that they should have sold last year. They overachieved last year. And we thought, oh, wow, they overachieved. They got to the second round. Go out and get the best center and the best defenseman, and how'd it work out? They should have done this reset a while ago. But I give them the flowers for identifying it now. If they let this thing play out and play the rest of the year and try to be a one and done, it would have set them further back. So that's why I'm giving Sweeney his flowers. And the other thing is, I think he may have done enough to save his job. And if at the end of the year they move on from him, I know why. The draft. Do you want Don Sweeney being the guy to draft these players or make these moves? That's the question of the night going forward here. 617-779-0985. We're going to talk to Conor Ryan from the Globe coming up in a little bit, so we'll get his thoughts. Skaz, why don't we bang out some calls? I know some people want to get in on this Marchand thing, and unfortunately, my call screener, I see a Dave in Westwood, and I can't pick. Yeah. Hey, Dave, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Joe, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, love the show. So I completely agree with you. Sweeney made the right moves today. The Swayman contract, I don't know how we're going to deal with that. Hopefully he does great next year, and maybe we unload him. I don't see him winning a cup. Going to Marchand, I'm going to miss. Sacco, though, is not the right coach. He's not going to win a cup for us, so we're going to have to figure out how, when I hear him talk compared to Missoula, I know Missoula's crazy, but Sacco's not going to win a cup, and I just want to hear your thoughts on that, so thanks.
Yeah, Sacco's what was the old things we used to say about Joe Flacco Sacco? Yeah, Joe Sacco is going to be done after this year. I think so. We'll ask Conor Ryan. We asked Jim McBride last week. He liked him. Sweeney Sacco 2026, everybody? Is that what we're doing here? Out. Out. If I had a choice, I would keep Sweeney. If I had to move on from both, I probably would too. Skaz, I liked your take earlier. Hi, Skaz. How are you?
Hey, Joe.
This has been a very interesting.
It's been a fun one, Joe. A little busy, but yeah, that's what we like.
So I think we wanted this. Not like the fire sale, just the fact that they acknowledge that they're not good anymore and they need to reset. So I'm going to give Sweeney his flowers. But you mentioned something about the Marchand deal, and that's all anybody cares about is the return. I don't. I got a lot here in return. But the Marchand thing in general, though, what are your thoughts on Marchand being moved, and what do you think he'll actually do with Florida?
Yeah, so listening to Sweeney, it seems like they were pretty far apart. And it seems like that it was, I don't want to say untenable because it sounds like, he said, we'll leave the door open. We'll always leave the door open for Marchand. But they were not close in the numbers. And I'm of the belief that you couldn't let Brad Marchand go for nothing. That he this team right now, how it's currently constituted, you don't have enough assets. And the asset you got back for Brad Marchand is not a lot. But it's something. It's more than you had. I think today was a good day for the future of the Bruins. This season, obviously, is over. You can look at the Four Nations. Maybe McAvoy getting hurt kind of expedited this whole thing, where if McAvoy's healthy, then who knows if any of this even happens, what they look like coming out of the Four Nations. But, that's where they are right now. And on him going to Florida, Brad Marchand doesn't have no say in that. We don't know if he had a no trade clause with a list of teams or a full no movement. I don't think that's, fully out there yet, but he had to have some of a no trade clause. Everyone in that league does. That's a good player. And when you read the stipulations for the pick, the conditional pick, there's some conflicting reports still out there, but it seems like Florida has to advance 2 rounds in the playoffs, and Marchand has to make an appearance, was what I read in one of the tweets. Joe, I think there's a real possibility that Brad Marchand never wears a Florida Panthers uniform.
Whoa.
Sweeney said he's 3 to 4 weeks away, and just reading the details of the trade, it doesn't sound like the Florida Panthers are overly confident that he's going to play too many games for them or even a game for them. So I still think there's a chance Marchand never plays for the Panthers. But he's a guy you couldn't just let him walk. If they were that far away, Don Sweeney's not doing his job. And look, people love to crush Don Sweeney, and I get it. Has it been frustrating at times? Absolutely. But at some point, the Bruins have to look at the players on the roster. Elias Lindholm, Zadorov, the guys in 2019. The 15 draft gets brought up constantly. That was 10 years ago. How come the players on the roster never get blamed for 2019? They choked. If they win that cup,
I don't blame Sweeney for that at all.
It's a lot easier to blow it up after that instead of feeling like you owe those guys something and continuing to middle it for the next 5 years.
I'm glad you said that.
They choked in 2019. The players choked. Don Sweeney built a competent roster, a Stanley Cup caliber roster. The nation of Canada feels okay naming Don Sweeney their general manager. I'm not saying Don Sweeney's perfect. I'm not even saying he's great at his job, but he's very good at making NHL trades. Do I think he's the right guy? I have no idea if he's the right guy for a rebuild. But today was a good day for the future of the Boston Bruins.
I would say, in reality, the players were a bigger letdown than Don Sweeney. If we're just really going to look at it from a whole, Don Sweeney had nothing to do with them losing in the Stanley Cup final. When he built the greatest team of all time, regular season team of all time, not his fault. And at the deadline, he gave up first-round picks for Bertuzzi, and they lost their second-round pick next year for Orlov, right? Who's been gone. They should have, in my opinion, they should have started this rebuild after that season, but they didn't. And they had a nice little playoff run. You remember? I'm consistent. I wanted them to sell last year. I didn't think they were going to go on a run last year. I know they were better. They were a much better team a year ago. That Marchand thing, though, that you're saying here, I wanted to bring up a quote from Sweeney. He said that we didn't burn it down. We still have a lot of guys. He also said that the Marchand injury complicated a lot of things. They were able to get it done, though. Like, Florida wants Marchand. The Bruins also wanted to move on from Marchand. So I wonder if it's worth the risk for Florida because Toronto improved, right? The Western Conference improved. Just thinking of the Panthers with that lineup of potentially, who is it? Tkachuk, Marchand, Bennett. Whew. Like, that's going to get me to watch. That is going to get me to watch the games. So we got to work the Bruins games the rest of the year, and I'm all for the number 1 pick lottery, baby. I'm in. But Sweeney says they didn't burn it down. I think at least they have been overachievers. I wish they did the reset a little bit earlier, but Skaz says potentially Marchand never plays with the the Florida. We'll find out. All right, we'll talk with Conor Ryan. He was at the press conference today. He's been covering the team all day long. We'll get his thoughts. We'll get a Bruins perspective. We'll do that next here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
More Joe Murray coming up on The Sports Hub.
98.5 The Sports Hub. I'm Joe Murray. What a day it's been, everybody. Woo! What a day. I'm still trying to catch up. Skaz, you'll have to pull them up for us, but let's go to the Volkswagen Expert Hotline right now. Volkswagen Deals Expert Hotline. Welcome in Conor Ryan, Boston.com, The Globe. Conor, what a day for you, huh, bro?
A little busy, Joe, I would say, but happy to talk hockey with you.
So a lot happened today, and were you surprised in the end that there was a fire sale? And when I say fire sale, did you think that there'd be this many moves today?
Yeah, I was probably surprised at the number of moves they made. Because there's some guys you looked at, right, and it made a lot of sense as to if you're a team like the Bruins, you're really going nowhere this year. You look at the pending free agents, the Trent Fredericks, Justin Brazeaus, and got good return for those players. So you're like, all right, this is a good bit of business from the Bruins in terms of maximizing guys that probably aren't going to be here long term. But when you then move guys like, Charlie Coyle, who has another year on his deal, Brendan Collar, who has 2 years on his deal, and of course, big one, I know he's a pending free agent, but still there's a certain amount of weight and, shift in the culture and the direction of a team when you move a captain. Doesn't matter if he's 30, 36, what have you. When you move a guy like Brad Marchand, that does send waves throughout the organization. So, it's kind of tough to gauge exactly the overall return yet, because I feel like they did a lot of good work moving guys like Coyle and Carlo in what is clearly a seller's market. The Marchand one, though, is a little bit circumstantial. When you look at just what you thought he was going to get, I can understand why I think a lot of Bruins fans are generally underwhelmed with the return, at least for right now.
So I'm not, just my take from afar, I don't care about the return today. I don't know if that's the story. I think the story is that for years, this team always at the deadline, right, was the team getting fleeced. Let's just be honest, right? Mm-hmm. They were always the team giving up big capital to try to just double down. Well, I think they were able to take advantage of the market, right? The seller's market, but they realized that they needed a reset. And you could argue a couple of years ago, they probably should have reset, right? And maybe last year they overachieved a little bit. But where I'm going with this is I'm glad, whether it's ownership or Sweeney, that they realized they had to do the reset now. I want to give Sweeney his flowers for that, despite the return. Did he do enough today to keep his job?
Yeah, I think so. When you look at, especially I think from the perspective of ownership, I don't think there's going to be Bruins fans who are still going to bring up, the 2015 draft when it comes to Sweeney. But I think when you look at ownership, I don't think would have given him the green light to, again, overhaul significant parts of his roster, move their captain, without probably getting the approval from ownership to be like, all right, this year has not gone according to plan. We're going to give you the tools to kind of untangle this mess. So I don't think the Bruins would have, given him the ability to really be this aggressive at the deadline if they weren't going to at least give him a chance to see what they can do. And I agree with you, Joe. You can kind of pass out each of the different returns. And I think as a whole, when you look at the Frederick move, Brazeau, Carlo, Coyle, all those guys, you almost lose track of the amount of guys that have been traded. But I think they've done well in terms of recouping a lot of draft picks and also bringing in younger players that even if maybe they're not ready to contribute right here this season, which, this season's already kind of shot when you look at just where they are in the playoffs anyway, they at least have pieces that could help them out moving forward. And I think that's a good starting point. And Sweeney mentions to the media, talking to us, that, he doesn't view it as a complete teardown, even though you're moving a lot of key pieces. But from their perspective, it's all right, we have a lot of draft capital. We still have a 60-goal scorer in Pastrnak. We have some foundational pieces. It's all about how to reshuffle the rest of that roster around those guys and maybe take a step back for a year or two, but then kind of get back to where you're hoping to be, which is a sustainable winner moving forward.
All right, we're talking about Conor Ryan of the Boston Globe, covers the Bruins. Conor, you mentioned something that the season didn't go to plan. If we went back to the beginning of the year, Swayman's contract wasn't done, right? Montgomery didn't have the extension. Marchand didn't have the extension. Did it seem like at the start when you were there that these things could linger? Did you think it would get to this point? And what fell apart here in the end? Was it just the free agents didn't work out? Captain, what didn't work? This isn't how you thought it was all going to start, right?
No, absolutely. I think I was probably one, and I think there was a lot of people who thought that the moves the Bruins made, I don't think we were all expecting, let's say, Elias Lindholm to be an 80-point guy or anything like that, or Zadorov to take a huge step forward. But you look at the promise and the foundation that they showed last year, and you look at how good Swayman was in the playoffs, and you still had Pasternak going into his age 27 year. You're like, all right, this team should build off of what they did this previous year when a lot of us thought they were going to be a bubble team. And like, if the team they trotted out last year was going to be a hard out in the playoffs, what could this team, which upgraded seemingly their roster, do? And it just feels like everything fell apart. I think the Bruins were expecting a little bit of regression, but when you had so many guys all across the lineup that had really rough stats for the year, whether it's Morgan Geekie, who couldn't find his way, Charlie Coyle wasn't able to replicate last year. You look at, other players, Trent Frederick wasn't able to do what he did last year. And it just feels like everything was just kind of off. It almost feels like this team, regardless of the moves they made today and the moves they make, whether it's at the draft or free agency, they just need to reset, right? They need to get past this year because it just feels like everything was wrong. Jim Montgomery didn't have his contract, and that dragged out, and he was fired. You had the Jeremy Swayman drama. You had guys like Elias Lindholm. He got hurt the first day of practice, and it remains to be seen just how 100% he was this entire year anyway. So, again, I think a lot of this roster needed to be overhauled, and they needed a fresh start, but it just everywhere you look across this lineup, this roster, it just feels like everything was just slightly off this year, and it just snowballed into what you have now, which is a team that's gunning for a top 10 pick in the draft.
So while we were talking, Buchagras just tweeted on the Marchand thing. From what he heard, is the Bruins offered 2 years around $3 million. He wanted 3 years. Did he deserve it? Was it the Bruins after maybe being a little scared with the Swayman deal? And in the end, like, I know you're looking at it as the return. Maybe it's a little underwhelming, but I don't know. Like, does he even ever play for Florida? I just feel like they had to do this because I think it was what was best for the Boston Bruins today, moving on from Marchand.
Yeah, I do think, Joe, when you look at this return, it's probably one where you're not be able to get out the final grades until we figure out what exactly Marchand does this offseason. I'm not really buying into the narrative of like, all right, like you send him to Florida, he gets a run, then he signs right back here. Like, I don't know how realistic that is. It's very few times where that actually does play out, but I think I'm going to keep tabs on what his next contract is, because if he plays at a high level in the playoffs with Florida and he does sign a 3-year deal, I'm of the opinion that if the Bruins, if that was what they were arguing over, was a 3-year, $3 million, I would probably rather have a guy who, even as he gets older, could be a 20-goal scorer on the wing. I think that's pretty good value for what he'd bring to this team, especially when you look at how the cap is jumping up. But let's see what he signs. Is he going to the offseason? He signs with a team up in Canada or a team out west for 3 years at $6.5 million or $6 million, based on the way the cap is going. If that's what the actual going price was, I can see why the Bruins want to move on from that. Because I think right now, as they kind of tear off the Band-Aid and start anew, I think it's important to have as much cap flexibility as possible moving forward.
All right, I got 2 percentage questions for you. What percentage do you give Brad Marchand signing back with the Bees?
I would say like 10%.
Wow.
I don't think it's like there's burned bridges or anything, but it's just how it naturally happens, where it really does seem like it's something few and far between, where I think there's been countless times where players say all the right things, ownership says all the right things about wanting to keep a guy or keeping the door open, and then they go to a new place. Brad's going down to Florida. He's enjoying 90-degree weather down there, goes in the playoffs, has a nice run. Maybe it changes your opinion. You can go into a situation like this thinking that the door's still open with a place like Boston, but it broadens your horizons when you get to a spot like that. And it does seem like those things don't happen all that often. So I don't think it's like Marchand's storming his way out of here. There's bad blood or anything, but it is a business. The Bruins made their call, and I just view that as a thing that they're not going to revisit moving forward.
My other percentage question was, I've been consistent on this for at least the last week or so, but I felt that the Bruins were closer to the lottery than they were to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So do you think now they have a shot at the number 1 pick and maybe move up a little bit to get a better percentage for the top pick in the draft?
I mean, you look at the roster they trotted out against Carolina yesterday, and it's like that seems like a team that would be gunning for a number 1 pick. And again, you have to have the lottery kind of fall your way, but maybe they give a call to Gary Bettman. The Bruins would, like the Blackhawks a few years ago when they got Conor Bedard. It's like, hey, would be really good if our market that makes you guys a lot of money just happens to get the first pick. And it's unfortunate that this year in the draft, the number 1 pick is actually a defenseman. But hey, if they get the 2nd, 3rd, 4th pick, there's a lot of pretty dynamic centers and playmakers out there that would really help jumpstart this, whatever you want to call it, retool, rebuild. There's a lot of high-end skill, especially in the top 5 of this draft, that even if it's maybe not a guy like a Conor Bedard or a Macklin Celebrini or a franchise top-line centerman, there's a guy that I think can help you out in a year or two if you do get up in that top 5.
So can you just let our listeners know any of these players that they should be excited about long-term? The Minton kid, I've heard some things about, and I tried to say his name, Husnudinov, I think is how you say it.
Husnudinov. Husnudinov. Believe me, I had to look at it. I had to listen to it about 20 times for getting on here to make sure I was saying it right.
Yeah, you should have heard me last night when we broke the news. I was like, yeah, his gases was even worse.
He's
than
that Russian guy, yeah.
But who should fans be excited about of all the guys they got in return?
Yeah, there's a lot of intriguing players. I would say Minton's a guy definitely in terms of what his ceiling could be. I don't think he's projected to be a top line fixture, but everything you see about him and the fact that he's just 20 years old, he's already cracked the lineup with a team like Toronto that has a lot of skill. And the big thing with him is his motor. He's viewed as being a really good two-way player, a guy that could be a second line fixture, maybe a really elite third line player. Essentially, I think what they view Charlie Coyle as being right now is what they're projecting a player like Fraser Minton to be. So I think there's a lot of upside with a player like that. Husnudinov, he's 22 years old, had a really productive career over in Russia in the KHL, where he's playing up against older players, which is usually a good sign. Hasn't replicated that here with the Minnesota Wild, but a guy that plays a lot of pace, has a really high motor. And I think you're seeing that with the Bruins, where this year this team had to work so hard just to generate offense, just to win puck battles, to be effective on the forecheck. Bringing in guys like Minton, Casey Middlestad, who's a bit of a playmaker, who they're hoping to kind of view as the same as like a Morgan Geekie or a Pavel Zacha, where new situation, get more out of his game. It's a lot of players that stylistically are different from where the Bruins were this past year, but I don't know about you, watching how the Bruins forward core was this year, I think it's the right call to kind of change up what this team is going to look like in the years ahead.
I agree, and watching the stick break last night for Zadorov, who, by the way, I actually thought he had a fine game. Like, he had 6 hits, and I thought they competed really hard. But to lose that way, that's after the game, man, I was like, sell this thing.
Yeah, if there was ever a way to sum up that season, right, it was a situation like that. That should have been the sign, like, maybe they will get a top 5 pick the way this is going.
Oh, that'd be awesome if somehow they could win that lottery or at least get up there. Final thing for me, Joe Sacco, he's doing what he can, right? He's the guy that's just there to kind of clean up all the pieces here. But who is the next coach of the Boston Bruins?
It's going to be really interesting to see what the options are out there. If you ask me, before who'd they be looking at, it's a guy who's actually under contract, but I do wonder what Mike Sullivan's future is with the Penguins, where that team is going, and how that might change, because it does feel like he'd be a guy that has enough of a veteran presence and can get more out of the established, essentially new leadership core here with guys like Pasternak. McAvoy, obviously, he has those ties, but I do think he's probably the best guy that could be available. It depends on what exactly Pittsburgh does. But then you've got a lot of coaches that are younger. David Carl's a guy that is supposed to be a hot commodity. He's had a really successful career in college. He's under 40 years old, but is viewed as kind of that next up-and-coming star. And you look at what teams are linked to him, it's teams that have a lot of younger players like Chicago. But I don't know, if you're a guy like David Carl and you have a team that is retooling, has some young talent, but you also have the stability and you guys like Charlie McAvoy and David Pasternak in place there, that could be more appealing than going through a legitimate rebuild with a team like Chicago. So I think if the Bruins do hold a full coaching search, there's going to be a lot of promising coaches that'll be lining up for this opportunity.
And you think it's still a good destination?
I do. I think when you look at just their ability to still, I think, attract free agents, the core that they still have here. And again, you can look at where exactly some of these other guys are, like Hampus Lindholm coming off his injury. Jeremy Swayman's had a rough year, but I think the Bruins are banking for a rebound from a few of those players. And when you have guys like them, Charlie McAvoy, obviously David Pasternak, I still think you have enough of a core, even if it's being retooled a little bit, to have a lot of teams want to buy in here and see what you can be as part of, again, what is pretty firmly the next chapter of this team moving forward.
You got he's Conor Ryan. Conor, appreciate you taking some time here. I know it's been a busy day for you. It's a Friday night as well. And, well, I'm sure you'll be reading a lot about all the newcomers, man. So I appreciate you taking some time tonight.
Absolutely.
You got it. He's Conor Ryan. Everybody check out his work over at Boston.com. The Globe does an excellent job. Him and Ty Anderson did a podcast the other night that I watched as well. So awesome stuff there. We're going to talk bees. It's all on the table. Feel free to call in 617-779-0985. We may take some breathers as well. We'll still do in or out, right, Skaz? So have we still got it?
You're the host, Joe. Whatever you want.
We ready for it, though?
I got some.
All right. Street Team Joe's here tonight, too. We call him Street Team Joe. You know why? Because he works on the street team. And he's here helping us out tonight, answering the phones. Plenty of people watching tonight as well on YouTube. One of our biggest listenership, to over 200 people, which is a lot for us at night on a Friday night. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll do more Bruins talk. We got in or out coming up as well. And Bill Speros going to join us in the next hour as well. I'm Joe Murray. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
Sports Hub.
Lucic and Savard out long term is a significant blow to this hockey club. And they're in a need right now of a kind of an attitude adjustment. And they've got a couple guys coming up from Providence who they hope can provide just that.
Vladimir Sobotka coming up, Brad Marchand coming up. They also acquired Dan Paille from Buffalo. I termed it, Bob, looking for an infusion of energy and enthusiasm, which has been lacking for the most part so far this year.
They'll get that. They should get that from those two players. Brad Marchand playing here today, first NHL game. He's the guy that, he brings it every shift. And I remember talking to Rob Murray, who's the head coach in Providence, talking to him during training camp, and he was explaining to me about Marchand, what his thoughts were about him, saying, look, he first saw him in training camp and said, all right, this guy will start to tail off a little bit. He works really hard, but it's just training camp. He's trying to impress people. Every day in practice, every game, every shift, this guy brought it. So they will get that energy from Marchand.
Yeah, shout out the Jeremy Conley for doing a little recon on that one.
Yeah, we'll play a lot of Marchand stuff in and out tonight. Make no mistake about it, Marchand's a Hall of Famer. Was a great Boston Bruin, and they don't win the Stanley Cup without him. And I don't want to remember him as the guy that was on a shift that missed the shift and gave up a goal in a Game 7 at home. It's hard it's like Wes Welker dropping the pass. It's just you can't get it out of your brain. But if you do, they were both great players, right? I think Welker's a Hall of Famer, but we're talking about two different sports here. The numbers that Marchand put up are Hall of Fame. He also played with a bunch of Hall of Famers too, which, I call Marchand an overachiever because he was a second-round pick. Don't get me wrong. Did he overachieve? Yes. Was he small, undersized? Absolutely. Did anyone think he was that tough? He was wicked tough. And when it mattered, Brad Marchand was a gamer. Now, his leadership skills, there are just some players that can only play a certain way. And I think Marchand's one of them. Is he a leader? Yes, okay. Was he a good captain? No, but it's hard to be the guy that plays that style in as a captain. It's just hard to do. So we'll play Marchand stuff. I just wanted to bring up the trade that just happened in the NFL. So the Seahawks move on from Geno Smith. They send him to the Raiders. So the Raiders have their quarterback now. They give up a third-round pick. If I just off top of my head, who's the quarterback now of the Seahawks? It's Sam Howell, I believe, who they got last year from Washington, was a starter 2 years ago. But they must be looking in free agency, right? Only guy I can think of is Sam Darnold. Clint Kubiak. There's a connection there. Now, they would have to give up way more money for Darnold than Geno, but Darnold's younger. This also, I think, takes DK Metcalf out of the mix. If they move on from Geno to go after a premium quarterback, why would they give up Metcalf? And didn't Darnold just go into a situation just like the Vikings with, Jefferson and Addison and guys like that? Why would you want to split up Njigba and Metcalf? I don't think DK's going anywhere now, Skaz, after this move. That's at least my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Darnold thing, I guess, is interesting. He had a good year last year, but you're going to have to pay him, like you just said. Like, he's probably going to get more than Geno. So I just don't really see what the Seahawks are doing. It seems like they're kind of just stuck in the middle, which I think is a bad place to be.
Ooh, that is right. They're either like 7-9 fringe playoff team that can't go forward, right? Does Darnold get them over? I think you're right about that. Is Darnold, could Darnold get them past the first round? Because he didn't get the Vikings past it. What could be their other options? Aaron Rodgers? Man, we're going to be throwing Rodgers' name around with every team now. But at least it's still there. All right, well, that just happened. Should we let's talk let's grab Mark, who's in Georgetown. It's Mark Lewis, everybody. What's up, buddy?
Joey, what's happening, bro? I was going to text you today, let you know I was going to be calling up. What's happening?
What do you got?
No, listen, here's the thing about me with the Marchand. I'm fine with the fire sale. Fine with it, right? Totally cool. If you're going to do something, make a decision and go for it, fine. I don't hate the Coyle return. I actually love the Brandon Carlo return. My problem with the Marchand move more than anything, you're going to tell me there's not another team in the NHL that would have given you a conditional second-round pick for a guy like Brad Marchand, especially teams looking for veteran wingers. You get teams like, LA was in the hunt for a lot of things. Dallas was clearly looking to make moves. I know they ended up getting Rantanen, who's like way better than Marchand at this point in his career. I get that. But this is what I mean, where it's like Florida is the only team that was willing to part ways with a draft piece like a conditional second-round pick to get a guy like Brad Marchand.
It's the injury.
I just don't.
The injury.
Yeah, I get that, but okay, yeah, the injury is the injury, whatever. You know he's going to be back. He's proven he's tough. He's proven he'll play through injury. He's on an expired contract anyways. Brock Nelson from the New York Islanders warranted like quadruple a return? Come on.
No,
Marchand's got a cup. I'm just saying, do you see where my point is? Like, yeah, do you see where I'm going with that, though? Like, no one else would have paid this price besides Florida, the team that bounced you 2 years in a row.
I think Florida's the team that they had a shot at a first-round pick. And I feel like the organization said the injury is the biggest issue here, Mark. That's the issue. He had the injury, and listen, all these conditionals, he has to play 50% of the games, and there's no guarantee he will.
Yeah, and okay, so then you go to somewhere like, okay, so the other part of this is Florida, didn't they just use another first-round pick to get Seth Jones with the kid Knight, the goalie?
Yeah, they have no
if I'm not
first-round pick
mistaken,
this year or next year, yeah.
Yeah, and then the first rounder they got from the Leafs is next year as well, right? Not this year.
Well, think of it like this, too.
If I'm not mistaken.
Well, think of it like that. Florida's going back-to-back, right? Well, potentially.
Yeah.
And when this pick comes around, it's either 27 or 28, they might be resetting and maybe have a pick that could be very high as well.
Yeah, that's the other part of that, right? And I agree with that. The other part of it is if you're Florida, right, you got to think you've gone on 2 Stanley Cup runs at this point. You need as many fresh legs in that lineup as you possibly can. I'm talking about guys who can contribute and haven't been on like bodily taxing Stanley Cup runs back-to-back years. It's the hardest trophy to win in sports for a reason. So that's why I'm surprised they didn't go for somebody a little bit younger. Granted, I know because their veteran leadership is clearly fine. You've been there and done that 2 years in a row now. You lost one, you won one, I get it. But if you're the Bruins, I think you sold off essentially what was sellable for, I don't even know if that's a real word, but like if it should be. I think you sold off what had a price. So what were you saying?
No, I said, no, thanks, but we're up against it. We got to go. No, but here, let me just sum this up. I get that people, and appreciate your call, man. I get that people wanted more of a return, but you could be selling damaged goods. A guy who never plays. And he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. The other thing is this. You keep him, you lose him in the offseason for nothing. I'm down with the move. I'm down with the move because of all the other moves, too. They needed to reset. They should have done it a while ago. Hey, guess what we got next, guys? In or out? We'll do that next here on the Sports Hub.
What's it gonna be, McFly? Are you in or out?
falling down. He throws to the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown.
WBZ-FM at HD Boston. 98.5, the Sports Hub. A Beasley Media Group station.
Sports Hub headlines. Presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
Well, the NHL trade deadline has come and gone, and woo, what a day it was for the Bees, who have moved on from Brad Marchand. He's going to the Florida Panthers. It's going to be a conditional second-round pick in 27 or 28. It could be a first-round pick if Marchand plays 50% of the playoff games and the Panthers advance past the second round. Brandon Carlo heading to Toronto, and Charlie Coyle traded to Colorado. Just a trade going down in the NFL just now. Geno Smith heading from Seattle to the Raiders. Exchange for a third-round pick. Plenty of discussion that Sam Darnold could be the favorite. There was a trade that was shut down. Max Crosby to Seattle for DK Metcalf and Smith, but got denied. Headlines, they are brought to you by Awaken 180 Weight Loss with a 98% customer satisfaction rating and thousands of 5-star reviews. The choice is clear, awaken180weightloss.com. I'm Joe Murray, your next update soon.
No matter where you go, you're always connected to Boston sports with the 98.5 The Sports Hub app. Download it wherever you get your apps today.
Are you in or out? Gotta know without a doubt. I'm the one you need for a dirty deed. I'm the best. Success is...
You leave it out and it gets crunchy?
Yeah, you never done that before?
I don't think so.
Told you I like the cabbage cheese slices, right?
Yes.
Put a couple of those on a pan with some oil. Just let them sit for a little bit. Then take them off and put them on a napkin or a plate. And then what I like to do is, now that it's been cooked a little bit, I put the pepperoni in it, and I eat it like a cheese pepperoni sandwich.
You don't even need the cracker.
Don't even. That's why we don't even need the taco. We just need the cheese and the beef and the cheese, baby. No lettuce. In on that though. Come on, Skaz. Imagine like some nacho cheese, heat it up, like you can fold it, and then throw some beef in it, and.
All right, Joe.
I love cheese!
All right, Joe. Sticking with food, Dairy Queen has announced a new...
But whenever I have gone to a Dairy Queen, it was suggested one day because I watched a little kid get a little kid cone, and he wanted a cherry dip, and I didn't know what it was. So they gave him the cone, and the mom was like, no, he wanted it cherry dipped. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry. So I watched them dip it, and then when it came out, it was like almost like fondant-ish, you know? And I went, ooh, can I get that too? So I ordered an ice cream and got that, ate that before I got my ice cream. I love the dip!
All right, Joe.
I can't. What don't I love right now?
Well, Joe, I think we might have another winner. We just spoke of crackers, and good friends over at Ritz Crackers, Joe, announced they will be releasing a spicy queso flavored Ritz Bits.
Oh, I don't think I've had a spicy Ritz.
Spicy queso.
I think I'm in. No, I don't want to mess up a Ritz cracker. You know what? I do a lot with Ritz crackers. I don't know if I've told you this. Okay. My mom, shout out mom, makes this broccoli dip with cheese. Not broccoli dip, sorry. It's a broccoli casserole. So it's broccoli, cheese, crumpled, broken up Ritz crackers, and a clam chowder. By the way, this is amusing, but it's in or out. I like to, when I get clam chowder, right? I want the oyster crackers in the bag, because I like to break up the crackers in the bag first, and then dump them in my chowder. The other day, can't remember when this happened, but I got served chowder, but it was its own little ramekin of oyster crackers.
Out.
So I was like, do I break the crackers up in the ramekin? I want my plastic bag. So, note to self or restaurant owners. When you serve clam chowder, I want the bag. We all want the bags, guys. In.
All right, Joe, we will head to minor league baseball for our next one. Joe, this courtesy of the Kalamazoo Growlers. They are serving a 1,017-calorie hot dog topped with whipped cream, sprinkles, and a maraschino cherry served on a custom chocolate cake donut. Joe Murray, are you in or out? I will put the picture in Slack. It might be in there, but I think it's from a lot earlier today, and it's been busy. So, Joe, the picture is not doing the item any favors. I will put it in YouTube for those to see as well.
Ooh, okay. I love hot dogs. I love whipped cream. I love donuts. I like cherries. But man, I don't know if I want to be mixing my donut with my hot dog.
Oh no, these billionaires are doing devious things. Who would have ever guessed?
Macaulay Culkin's brother got the award this week, I saw.
Yes, for A Real Pain, which is a good movie. Very good movie.
It wasn't for Succession?
No. It was the Oscars, Joe. It's for the movie.
Whatever. TV in there, too. Yeah. Is he funny or serious?
I think he'll always be, funny, but he's done some serious stuff.
Remember Little Miss
Little Miss Sunshine is incredible.
That's a great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah.
What's the kid's Paul Dano is fantastic in that movie. Yeah, very, very good movie.
Jonathan Kraft was like, well, we don't want to go that far. I would say that it's fueled by the players, but it's enhanced by sports betting. So when you have the head of the UFC, or the owner of the UFC, saying that the UFC's fueled by sports betting, the NFL's fueled by sports betting, I would say sports betting is pretty important to the sports. Yeah, well, the state is great at blowing money, as you all know, but the tax revenues in Massachusetts are averaging $133 million a month. The state is getting from revenue from sports betting, and the estimates when they passed the law were $60 to $70 million a month. So the state is literally taking in twice what it expected from sports betting. And I would imagine a good part of that is due to your listeners.
Oh, yeah. And listen, I'm one of these guys that, dude, you know how hard it is to get into radio? So I found a niche. I'm like, hey, I bet on sports, and I know about the ins and outs and what apps and whatever. And finally, when it started coming around, like we started the show, did a podcast, and like, so I guess I'll pat myself on the back of being a little bit of a trailblazer. But now everybody's a gambler, though.
Well, yeah, of course.
And my whole thing though is, it's now I think it's affecting the actual betting lines.
Well, that's the depending on the sport, the $200 million question. I heard your discussion the other night about the NBA.
Oh, you saw that, huh?
Oh, that was big news.
That was fishy, right? I'm a guy who lost a bet, but that should be investigated.
Well, that issue, the code word in the business is integrity. And we had a representative of the Commanders ownership at the panel today. Of course, it was Jonathan Kraft. The CEO of FanDuel, Amy Howe, was there. Jason Robbins, DraftKings hometown betting hero, was there. And whenever the issue of sports betting was brought up, mainly as a revenue driver and an audience driver, the issue of integrity was also brought up. And their point was, I forgot who said it. It was one of the NFL people who said, we haven't had a major integrity scandal yet. So I think to your point, you see a lot of things on the fringe that make you question, well, this can't be coincidence. This can't be happenstance. But some of it is the fact that they're so good at setting these lines. The guy behind me last night at the Celtics game spent the last 10 minutes screaming for the Celtics to hit a three-pointer. They took a three with about 8 seconds left. It rimmed out, and the guy had the over in 19.5 threes, and they finished with 19. So these guys know what they're doing in a sense. Mm-hmm. So it isn't always like the fix is in, so to speak. It's a lot of AI, which is now used in predicting these odds, and it's also used in the live updates. Your in-game betting when you're on your app, and you see all of that's AI is incorporated into all of it, not just the Patriots gambling programs in the state. You ought to check one of those out, because that's, and of course he was like, oh, well, it was only $50 and it was entertaining, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I ought to buy some more stock in DraftKings when people start thinking like that.
My biggest thing about it is we preach parlays. Everyone's just doing parlays. But imagine if you hit 2 out of 3 every time. Imagine if you bet them all straight, you'd be a winner.
Well, I preach parlays as in don't play them.
Yes.
And if you read Billy Walters' book, The Gambler, and I highly recommend it, he breaks down, and you can do the math yourself. The probability of a 3-leg parlay, just in terms of the raw numbers, is plus 275. So if you're ever doing a 3-leg parlay and you're not getting at least plus 275, and that's just the outcomes, odd, even, getting odd 3 in a row, even 3 in a row, that's plus 275. So if you ever play a 3-leg parlay and you're not getting at least plus 275, you're automatically giving the house that advantage. And so it does, like everything else, right? Gambling especially, it always comes down to numbers. And today at the conference, Amy Howe, the FanDuel CEO, said 40% of their Super Bowl bets were parlays.
Yeah.
And 15% of all their bets, of every single bet placed on FanDuel on Super Bowl Sunday, 15% of them had a Saquon Barkley over, under, or touchdown as part of the wager.
And there were terrible odds.
Yeah.
It was like minus 125, 130 to score a touchdown. Some of those 150
It closed
in
at
some
minus
places.
200.
All right,
I
200. There
believe.
you go. I was going to say.
And when if you watch that game, like I was, just really from the gambling standpoint, and thank God I got DeAndre Hopkins over 11.5 yards in that last play that they scored. Saquon Barkley not scoring in that Super Bowl was the difference between the profit and loss for the sports books on that game.
Yep.
There was a lot of early money on Philadelphia, but there was a ton of money that came on the Chiefs, and they also took a lot of money during the game on the Chiefs. So the sports books made a lot of money when the Chiefs didn't come back, and they made a killing when Saquon and Travis Kelce didn't score. That was a massive boost for them.
Well, Bill Speros is here. He's from bookies.com. Let's take a break. I got to hit the headline. Brad Marchand got traded today. I want to know your thoughts on basically the Bruins fire sailing today, and did you like it or not? So we'll get into that. We're here until 10 o'clock tonight. I'm Joe Murray. Let's get the headlines right now on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
A busy NHL trade deadline today. It started with Charlie Coyle traded to Colorado.
the Sports Hub.
Drew Stafford in the right corner. Plays it around to Jason Palmerville at the left point. They'll scale it down the boards. Connolly gossed at it. Stafford. Connolly's pass back up the line. Picked off by Marchand, and he's going to break away. Short-handed to the net. Shot. Score! Brad Marchand's first NHL goal comes short-handed, and it's 1-0 Bruins.
The first shorthanded goal of the season for the Bruins comes by the guy scoring his first goal in Marchand, and this is just a broken play. Murphy's Law right now with the Sabres. Things that can go wrong. They've got full possession of the puck in the corner. Connolly sends it around the boards, back to the left point. Nobody there except Marchand, and he takes it on a breakaway from the blue line all the way, and he was more surprised than anybody. Walks in past the blue line, settles that puck down, and is able to beat Enroth.
Well, Brad Marchand has been knocking on the door with some good chances to score recently. And he picks up his first in the NHL.
Short-handed goals he had in his career.
He seemed to get them when they mattered, for whatever that's worth. I mean, they were always impactful. And short-handed goals are usually, but his were more than others.
36 short-handed goals in his career. Has the most active short-handed goals. Most short-handed goals in Bruins history. Mr. Shorty.
Yeah, well, he was always so tough on that breakaway. Like somebody blow a pass, he'd be one on one or one on none with the goalie. So when he could skate.
Well, Gretzky had 73.
Well, Marchand, Gretzky.
Yeah,
I get him mixed up.
Both Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
All right, Bill. What'd you think about the fire sale from the Boston Bruins?
I'm glad to see it personally. I mean, I'm a Bruins fan. Have been since Bobby Orr. I think it was necessary, needed. I think you covered it pretty well earlier I'm kind of in your boat. I think it's glad it happened. I'm not really too focused on who they got in return. But I just, I'm coming into this studio, this massive audience. I once spoke to Joe's audience from the wing of an airplane. Now I'm here in the studio. I did some reporting. That's what we do. I reached out to a hockey source, well-known hockey source in Denver. I asked him if the player that Bruins got was any good. His answer was no. So your focus on not worrying about the return is good. But I went one step further, Joe, just for you, just for your audience.
So just so we know, you talked to a guy who knows the players.
Yes.
And they said, not good.
The one-word answer was no. I said, is this guy any good? And he said no.
Okay, sure. Can we was it a young prospect or one of the...
Well, whoever the Bruins got from the Avalanche.
Okay, yeah, that's the... They got him in the
Charlie Coyle
trade.
Yeah, this was a Coyle trade. I'm sorry.
No, it's
so many.
Casey Middlestat.
Yeah, and in other words, the one-word answer was, is Middlestat any good? The response I got was no. So y'all can rest on that, knowing that they got little in return, but we don't care about that. And
so you got another source you want to flex on?
I'm going to flex. I got my bona fides here. Work for the Herald, work for bookies.com. I reached out to Scotty Bowman, legendary, living legend, greatest coach ever. I asked him for his opinion on the Marchand trade and his appraisal of the Bruins. He believes Marchand will obviously make Florida better. And then I asked him, what about the Bruins? Is this a complete rebuild? Scotty Bowman, greatest hockey coach ever. I know they still have some very above-average talent. Swayman, McAvoy, Lindholm, Pasternak, Zakagiki. So I wouldn't call it a complete rebuild, more like a retooling from veteran players. And he admits he doesn't know about their farm system. So Scotty Bowman calls it a retooling and not a rebuild. He only has, I think, 14 Stanley Cups. So I'll let him speak for me on this. I'm just glad they did something. I'll say they blew it up. I think most people out there feel that way. The reaction on social media, hell, even the headlines of the both papers, the websites, you saw the phrase "blow it up." So I'm glad the Bruins blew it up. Scotty Bowman, is a bit more tempered in his analysis. He thinks there's a lot of pieces there. So if you're a Bruins fan, you can take that for what it's worth. He certainly ruined my childhood enough. So I'm going to take him at his word.
Well, I would love to know what he thinks the next Bruins coach would be, which is something we can get to at some point. But just looking ahead here, Jeremy Swayman, Charlie McAvoy, David Pasternak. Do you think that's a strong enough foundation for the retool?
Well, I mentioned this to Joe earlier. When I was at Sloan all day hanging out with billionaires and nerds, and like I was, well, this is true anyway, but I was the dumbest person in the room, obviously. And in here, I'm also the dumbest person in the room. There's only two of us.
Not true.
So I didn't even hear about any of this until my brother and my friend, Dave, shout out to both of them, my little text chain lit up. They got rid of Coyle. They got rid of Marchand. And the reaction I got was, too bad they didn't get rid of Swayman. So, I think sometimes, Bruins fans, they want more than they can get. I got to believe the reason why they couldn't get rid of Swayman was because nobody wanted him, or at least nobody wanted him worth anything in return. Obviously, you have a core there, with Parsonok. You have enough, you have something to build around, right? But it's almost like, and I guess you're not allowed to cross sports here.
No, on this show you can.
It's so much like the Patriots. They have so many needs, right? The Bruins have so many needs. You saw that today and last night too. I mean, they unloaded so much that it's almost like any acquisition they make, it'll be a positive until it's proven otherwise, right? So we can reserve judgment on this guy from Colorado, although my source in Colorado says he's not good.
Well, I'm fine with it. I'm glad they made the moves. They needed to reset. There's no doubt about that. They had to reset.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with it. Do you think Don Sweeney did enough to save his job?
Well, look, I've always believed that a Bruins general manager keeps his job if the team gets to the playoffs and they get home playoff gate, right? They get 1 or 2 home playoff gates or whatever it is. Because to me, I believe that's the nut. They make the playoffs, they make their nut, they get a little extra pocket change. Now, I'm not the NHL salary cap expert. Maybe they saved enough money to where he can say, look, even if we don't make the playoffs, I cut enough payroll for the rest of this year and looking forward to where it offsets. I would imagine that Sweeney felt like he either had to do this or that he could do it. So I think we'll obviously know soon enough at the end of the season. But I would say that he either got the code red from ownership, or if he didn't get the code red, then he's definitely swimming for his job.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he lost his job, but I think today he did what he had to do to save it. So I'm very interested. But you know what? I want to ask you this. You were a Bruins fan growing up. Who was like the last player on those 70s teams that they kept around, that they trotted out there?
Oh, boy. I don't know, Wayne Cashman, I guess?
Probably, yeah. And when did he retire a Bruin?
I don't
Did they
know.
have to? I'm trying to think about it. Like,
I remember seeing his hockey card with the Rangers. I may be hallucinating.
But that's what I mean. Like, Bobby Orr played for somebody else, right? Like, there was all these.
Espo, of course.
Like, I know Bergeron. There was at least. I know Bergeron never was going to leave. They looked at him like he was made, and he was a made man. I'll at least say that. But there was that talk. Maybe Montreal. Maybe there was that. I just feel like in that sport, Gretzky was traded. Great players get traded. It's just what happened. Ray Bourque, 25 years ago yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, and of course the difference here is that Bourque never won a Stanley Cup in Boston, so he went to Colorado. Obviously, Marchand won a Stanley Cup. And the same fellow who told me that whoever this guy from the Avalanche they got isn't very good, he believes that Marchand is pretty much washed, where his argument was that Ray Bourque was a really good player for Colorado and really contributed to that team. Because he covered the team, so he would know that. Yeah, Ray Bourque actually contributed to the Avalanche in that Stanley Cup run when they won it. What Marchand is going to be able to do in Florida when he's able to play, I mean, who knows, right? But it is certainly the second biggest heel turn of the week.
Oh!
I like that transition, huh? See, I hear radio once. I listen. I'm a listener.
So, someone else at the Sloan Analytics Conference was a man named Paul Levesque.
Oh, he dropped a big one today. Look, listen, if you're a wrestling fan and you're driving, I want you to pull over. If you're near any sharp objects or firearms, I would suggest that you put this away. During the conference today, Triple H, I won't even try to pronounce his last name. I don't know if he was tongue-in-cheek or serious. He was pretty serious up there on the stage. And he said, well, I don't want this to get out or be reported. This is a conference. And then he was reminded that this event was being live streamed. And it's live streamed. You can actually watch tomorrow's panels online. And he said, well, I don't care. He says, I want you to know, quote, that we control the outcome. So the WWE controls the outcome of their matches, just so you know. And he was talking about that in the context of how they produced the show. And he also explained why they went to Netflix was because they want a worldwide audience. So that's why they went to Netflix. So his whole point was that because they can control the outcome of anything, i.e. John Cena, that it's really on him for them to have an awesome, phenomenal, mind-blowing show every time because they have full control over what happens. So when you talk about WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and all that, there is kind of, and I think fans are going to start to expect, like, okay, we had John Cena, now what? And, there is a bit of a challenge when, how many John Cena heel, and I'm not a wrestling guy by any means, but I'm just talking in generic sense. How many John Cena heel turns do you got in the arsenal, right? From a wrestling perspective. So that's a challenge for them, and he pointed that out. Of course, he also said that his mother-in-law, who's the Secretary of Education, was asked about this at the State of the Union address. So we're on the verge of war with Canada, I guess, but they were asking about the heel turn at the State of the Union address. I would guess the president was probably more surprised than anybody on that one.
I'm sure. The president was like, huh?
Yeah. Who? Wait a second. When's the Hulk? I would imagine that call when he called Hulk Hogan and said, what happened? What is this John Cena thing? What's going on?
Hey, Scaz, let's pull up John. He's in North Attleboro. He's got some thoughts. What's up, John? You're on the Sports Hub. Bill Speros.
Joey, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
Doing good. First off, food suggestion. If you're at the stadium, North End Deli, best meatball calzone I've ever had.
You ever had that street team, Joe? Ever had one? So you said, what kind of calzone is it?
Meatball.
Just a meatball calzone with cheese and sauce?
Oh, yeah. It is amazing.
I guess I'll try it. I like Lambert's, but yep, I guess I'll give it a try.
Lambert's is a good spot. On Brad Marchand, I know, like, looking at Twitter, people are mad that they only got a second-round pick. Could be a first, depending on how many games he plays. But he's hurt, and that's what people have to understand. So if the Bruins weren't going to re-sign him, then he's walking. You're getting something for this. So
he could have walked for nothing.
Well, yeah, and also you have to remember, too, there is a salary component to this. I mean, they weren't going to pay him what he wanted. So this is kind of a salary dump as much as it is a straight-out trade.
Do you think he can come back?
To Boston?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think Sweeney brought that up. And like you were talking about earlier, I mean, I can't imagine, we like to talk about hard feelings. I mean, this is business. They all know that. I would guess he's probably a little hurt right now, upset, angry, PO'd. But, if he's healthy and the money's there and the Bruins want him back, sure. I think it's entirely possible if he's willing to take what they're going to pay him and if they're willing to accept what he can give them. Remember, he was like basically a third or fourth liner during the World Hockey Championship there, the four nations. So, he's not the Marchand that won the Stanley Cup 14 years ago either. So that kind of goes both ways.
All right. People in our chat think you sound like Paul Perillo.
Is that good or bad?
I love Paul Perillo.
Okay.
Sunshine.com?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, Paul is, he's a team player.
You're both scribes.
Yes. I am I am a print scribe. There will be a column with my name on it in tomorrow's Boston Herald print edition.
Can you hang around for another segment?
I can hang around for as long as you want, Joe.
One more. Bill Speros is here. I want to ask about the Celtics. And then Scaz has a take on Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James.
Oh, hey. Stephen A. Smith, the head of Endeavor Sports, is also Michael Shapiro, who's the head of TKO, and he is Stephen A. Smith's agent, and we did talk about that.
Oh, he made some dough.
He made about $8 million off that deal.
Yeah, and then LeBron got involved yesterday, right to Stephen A.'s face.
And LeBron's buddy Maverick Carter spoke today with Jason Robinson. I'm dropping names left and right. I understand that.
Bill
but
was
that's
with
what this
everybody.
thing is. That's why they sent me up to cover it. That's why I wrote about it. Herald got a lot of sports betting knowledge. So, yeah, I'll sit here and drop names and give you Scotty Bowman updates all night.
All right, well, this hour of the Sports Hub, of course, is brought to you by our good friends over at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com. You can save 15% off your next drive-through oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people like Bill Speros. I'm Joe Murray. We got the final hour of the show. I did want to just touch on Celtics-Lakers and the documentary, and Bill was at the Sloan Analytics Conference today with a bunch of big wigs. We'll talk about it next here on the Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5.
Bennett, Marchand. Woo-hoo. I can't wait to watch that one if Marchand does play, because if he does play, it's a conditional second, but if Florida advances 2 rounds and he plays 50% of the games, could become a first-round pick in 27 or 28. Some NFL news just breaking a little while ago. Geno Smith heading from Seattle to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick, and some other guys released today. Shaq Mason from Houston, Jonathan Allen from Washington, and Harold Landry from the Titans. And Jalen Brunson's expected to miss a couple of weeks for the Knicks. He's dealing with a right ankle sprain, and we should mention tomorrow night, Celtics and Lakers here on the Sports Hub. Headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Joe Murray. Your next update in 30 minutes.
New England plays here.
Down the right side, it's a separation. Touchdown pass. Yes. Perfect dive from Drake May.
98.5, the Sports Hub.
You want a random take? Murray's got all sorts on stuff in the world unrelated to sports. So sit back, relax, and get your mind in the game and listen to the words of a grown man complaining.
All right, back here in 98.5, the Sports Hub. This is the time of night, Bill, where we do Murray's musings. I just vent about stuff that's, on my mind, or I find a story.
I usually do that when I'm walking the dog.
Oh, okay. So you have Bill's musings.
Yeah, the dog he's kind of tuned me out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well.
No, but he must want to eat still, though, right?
Well, he pretends to pay attention, but
I always tell the dogs,
he's focused elsewhere.
Don't bite the hen that feeds you.
Oh, he doesn't bite. He's a sweetie, but
still,
he's kind of tuning out. He's 9.
Some dogs give the side eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He just pulls.
Bill, what would be your mercy meal?
Excuse me?
Your last meal, what would it be?
Oh, my last meal.
Mercy
oh, wow.
meal, I guess.
Let's see. It would be a combination. You know what? I'm gonna audible. It would be that meatball calzone. That sounds phenomenal.
No,
so
you grew up in Cambridge, right? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Cambridge. Grew up in Arlington.
Okay, so you're a what do we call that area? Not Middlesex.
Nowadays, it's Moonbat Central. I don't know. When I was a kid, we called it Arlington, and we called Cambridge. Nowadays, I have no idea what it's called.
What was your go-to though? Like what was like what everybody ate in the neighborhood, or still does to this day?
Well, in Arlington, it's Jimmy's Steerhouse. I mean, that place has been around for over 50 years.
One on Route 1 still.
Yeah, and it's right near the Heights on Mass Ave. That has been the go-to place in Arlington for forever. I mean, it opened when I was a kid. And usually, we've had post wakes or post funeral dinners there. We've had celebrations there. It was my dad's favorite place. He loved it. So we went there a lot when I was a kid. And the great thing about Jimmy's is it's still. I was there last year. It's still the same.
Well, there's a double murderer named Brad Sigmund. He's 67. He's on death row. And they asked him he could have a mercy meal, his last meal. This is what he chose. 4 pieces of fried chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes, and gravy biscuits, cheesecake, and sweet tea from KFC. I like KFC. I don't know if it'd be my mercy meal.
KFC, I mean, God, at least hit us with like Popeyes or Churches or anything. I mean, KFC that's at the bottom. That's the bottom rung. That's a pretty low standard. I'm a Popeyes fan. I love Popeyes. But
great chicken sandwich.
KFC that's pretty bad.
Skaz, do you have one? What would be your mercy meal?
Probably just something simple like steak and potatoes or something.
Yeah, you're a peanut butter and jelly guy.
Yeah.
What about
Keep
Joe?
it simple.
How about Street Team Joe? Is he a steak guy? I think I'm a steak guy.
Yeah.
I want like a nice prime rib.
I just had steak tips for dinner, so that's probably why I was thinking more of that meatball calzone.
Did you get them from somewhere? Was there a place?
Jake and Joe's right across the way.
Wow, nice little spot over there. They got great wings if you ever get a chance to go back over there.
I will get wings.
Dude, that market basket's wild over there.
Oh, my God.
I have
my
a lot
was
of
raving about it.
I have a lot of tales from that place.
Oh. He loves that place. He met one of the old Demoulas brothers there once. I think it was it's like meeting the president or something.
Jake and Joe's is good. We had Howie's retirement party there. Well, anyways, this guy's going to go to KFC.
So, what he ought to do is get executed, then have the meal. That would be my recommendation. Take the gas pipe, and then they can put the meal. Maybe they'll bury you with it. The meal will outlast him. If they were to bury that meal, it would still be the same in like 70 years.
You know what I liked about KFC? They in Street Team Joe brought this up. Companies with combos like KFC Taco Bell. Oh, I could get myself tacos and some chicken. Oh.
They used to have those all over the place in Florida, where I live, if you don't know.
What part of Florida are you in now?
New Smyrna Beach, nestled between Daytona and Cocoa. So
Ooh.
I see a lot of rockets in my backyard. But yeah, they used to have a lot of those in Florida, but they've closed most of them up. We sort of went through that era. The KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut era was a grand era, but it's no longer with us.
You got Red Lobster out there, though, right?
Oh, Red Lobster was started in Orlando by the same people who started Olive Garden, same company.
Cheddar biscuits.
You can go to the original Red Lobster in Orlando. It's right near the original Olive Garden.
Happy birthday to Brian Cranston, 69 years old today. Wanda Sykes, 61 years old today. Rachel Weisz, 55. Peter Sarsgaard. Jenna Fisher, 51 years old.
Jenna Fisher's 51.
Yep. Laura Prepon, 45 years old today. Let's see what else we have here.
Joe Carter, 65.
Oh, walk-off home run, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. I was a kid, like a young child. Did I say Jenna Fisher is 51? Did I already say that?
Yes.
Okay. Because what team did she root for?
Oh, she's from St. Louis.
Yeah, remember the whole St. Louis? Didn't like that at all.
No.
Any other birthdays today that you got there, Skaz? Because I don't. John Hurd, Home Alone.
Not a big birthday day, Joe.
John Hurd also was on, not only was he the dad in Home Alone, he was on The Sopranos.
I'm kind of depressed thinking that Pam's 51. I mean, I'm not one to complain. I turned 60 next week, so I'm not like for me, it's just like, she's always immortalized as, Jim's girlfriend and wife, and now she's middle-aged like the rest of us.
She annoyed me. I don't know why.
Well, because she rooted for the St. Louis Blues in the 2019 Stanley Cup Finals.
Speaking of this, I kind of made a comparison that I think Marchand, for me, will be known as a Hall of Famer, the little ball of hate who helped win a championship. But I won't forget his line change in Game 7 at home against the St. Louis Blues that basically was the turning point in the game.
Yeah.
Well, but I bring up Wes Welker. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Wes Welker did more with the Patriots than you can't get over it. He's a Hall of Famer.
I just dropped the thing of Lysol wipes that I will pick up before.
That's all you'll remember him for.
Okay, this is true story. I was leaving Super Bowl 53. I covered it for the Herald, and I had a file right on a deadline, early deadlines and all that. So I was done. So I was walking down to go to the locker room just to get some quotes for my next column. And I was at the top of a flight of stairs leading down from the stadium in Atlanta. And there was a fellow like 10 steps down wearing a Wes Welker jersey. And the guy behind me yells, "Welker, you expletive, you cost us another Super Bowl." And this was like 10 minutes after the Patriots had just won a real Super Bowl. And this was just a guy wearing a Welker jersey. And he was hearing it from Patriots fans even after they had just won a Super Bowl. So I'm thinking the Wes Welker thing is going to stick for a long time. And, of course, every time I see Asante Samuel's name show up on Twitter, I just say jump. So I think those things you point out, and we all forgave, Bill Buckner eventually. I don't think there's any animosity toward Wes Welker. I have more animosity toward Asante Samuel because he should have made that play.
Yeah.
A drop is a drop, but unfortunately, that's kind of what happens, right?
But
like
it happened.
You said
Yeah, it
with
happened to
Marchand,
Bill.
you could talk about that, but you go to your Game 7 line change.
But Bill Buckner's known for the era when really he was a good hitter.
Yeah.
Like,
well, with him too, it was kind of weird and ugly, and it was like he deserved. I was actually at opening day in 2008 when he came in with Dewey. That was really a great moment, and it was nice that we sort of redeemed ourselves, not him. He didn't need any redemption. I think the fan base needed redemption, and he got it. So I don't, Wes Welker is, I'm kidding. Yeah, obviously he was a great player, and he laid the foundation for the Edelmans and Amendolas of the world too. That's another thing about Wes Welker. He was that first guy, and once the Patriots and Belichick realized they could win with a guy like that, then they got a Edelman and Amendola, and they could have that kind of small slot guy who they would say, okay, this guy can make the transition and play. So there's that other part of Wes Welker too that you want to remember if you're looking at his whole career.
See if he can be a coach someday. I know he's.
Oh, I think that's happening.
Yeah, he's with the Dolphins, right? I believe already.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think Edelman talks about how Welker coached him up when he started with the Patriots.
Wally Pipp.
About that.
Belichick called it Wally Pipp. So you watched the first edition of the Celtics?
Oh God, I loved it.
So there were a few things. Again, I'm 42. So I'll be 43 soon. So I always knew of Kuzi. And again, I grew up in the city of Boston, so I very much understand the issues between black and white players, or just black players in general in Boston. And I think that the documentary really does highlight some of their issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously with Bill Russell, and that was always part of his narrative with the Celtics. And eventually, I think a lot of it for him changed after Red Auerbach died, because I think he realized that he was justified in what he went through. He was justified for the way that he felt, but that doesn't mean that again, sort of like talking about Buckner, it was he let it go, right? He was, it's tough to carry a grudge. It really is. And, in his case, even if it was justified, I think it was tough on him. And as he got older and the city itself changed and began to, not just with a statue, but I think the narrative where he finally got his place in the narrative on talk radio, if you want to say, or in the newspapers, when people talk about the greatest Celtics of all time, or they do that idiotic Mount Rushmore, or they have documentaries like you're talking about the Celtics town, that Russell is given his due. Unfortunately, that was not the case when he was playing. And even when I was growing up in the 70s, there was still a lot of negativity toward him, even though he wasn't playing here anymore. And then, the Celtics would move on to Cowens and Havlicek, and then the next era with Bird, and then the era with KG and Paul Pierce. So it is that's kind of that story took like 30 years to get to a point where, even though he's passed, you can talk about what happened, what he experienced. He was never shy about talking about it, obviously. He had the best coach in the world to help him through that. And it was, how like he said, he goes, I didn't play for Boston. I played for the Celtics.
So the only thing I thought was fairly interesting, they talk about that iconic photo of Russell.
That was really good. That picture was stunning.
You've probably seen it, right? I mean, I've seen it. Maybe I saw it at the Garden.
You
probably.
see it, but again, I give that like an A+ because it was good that you had Bob Cousy talking about it. You had people talking about it in perspective. And I worked in the newspaper business for years, and I did photo shoots. We used to do 80-page football previews. I did the photo shoots for all of them. I did 1 million photo shoots in my life. And usually photo shoots are either tied to a theme, or you want to get the right picture to tell a story, and you have a certain amount of time, and you set the light, and you take the picture. And back then it was a lot more complicated. So that picture was more like, okay, we have a big guy in the background because he's the big guy, and you have the small guy in the foreground because he's the small guy. And then this guy is white, so we're going to put him in a dark uniform. That guy's black, we're going to put him in a white uniform. It was much more of a picture composition issue than a statement. But then when you look at the picture in hindsight, 50, 70 years later, you realize that it was telling a story, even though it was meant to just be a photo.
Yeah, my only thing was, while Bob Cousy's out, being Mr. Basketball, Mr. Russell and his family are dealing with a lot of things there.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel like...
Well, that juxtaposition of talking about how Russell would go to Louisiana to see his dad. And, of course, Louisiana was part of the segregated South in the 60s. It was Jim Crow. That was a major issue in Florida to the 70s. So, yeah, when you went to that part of the United States 60 years ago, you could say Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, parts of Texas, parts of Florida, parts of Georgia, and the Carolinas, it was a real deal. And Reggie Jackson talked a lot about that too when they had the game in Birmingham. And if you really want to get into that issue, go watch the clip of Reggie talking about what he went through when he had to play in Birmingham in 1969. So no, it's a real thing. And sports in the real world, we talk about how sports isn't the real world. I think that's a lot of garbage. Look, I was 15 when the Americans won the gold medal and beat the Russians on Friday, and we thought we had won World War III. So sports, in a lot of ways, it matters, and it certainly mattered at that time because that was a gateway, right, for integration. And the SEC, obviously, with football, with basketball, so sports was a driving force in integration. It was also kind of a reflection of, where Russell, the gentleman who covered Russell, talked about the martini glass and how they wanted to share the glass.
Yeah.
That was a reflection of the time that was real. This isn't like John Henry, everybody's racist because of what Adam Jones said. This is like real stuff. And so when you look at the real stuff that really happened in Boston and elsewhere, and you compare it to some of the stuff, and I'm going to hammer the Red Sox, that they've tried to pull it's a joke. It's kind of a disgrace to what really happened. Like, you look at what happened with Bill Russell. That's a real thing.
Yep. And they led that off with Jaylen Brown talking about how, yes, it means something to him to play for the Celtics and also play in Boston because of that. Well,
I've been fortunate enough to connect with Bill Russell's widow, and I've written a few columns where I've talked to her for the Herald, and I've been told by very high-end Celtic media people that she's never talked to anyone on the record about anything. So I guess I'm fortunate in that sense. And I asked her about Jaylen Brown last year because she's very fond of him, and Russell was very fond of Jaylen Brown. Russell. Well, she always said, well, my husband always thought of Jaylen as the one that, was the closest to him in terms of not being the best player, not being the guy who's going to win 11 rings, but that kind of guy away from the court that Bill Russell maybe wanted to be and tried his best but couldn't be because of when he played.
Yeah. But my only thing, and we're late, but just quickly, do you just think... I look at it like Cousy really was just ignorant to it because he was Mr. Basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he did it. He was ignorant. And I think, and eventually they came together and hammered things out. But even he had to call Satch Sanders to be like, hey, I don't remember this incident.
Yeah.
But when you're Mr. Basketball, I think it is easy to kind of be blinded by the light. You know what I mean?
Well, and of course, Cousy played at Holy Cross, and he was a local guy, and it is insane in the off season that he used to teach women how to drive. I mean, think about that.
Yep.
The next time you want to talk about the $300 million max contract.
Right, three cars. Here he is. He didn't know what he was going to
do. Two wheels. So Bob Cousy, who at one time on this metaverse was the greatest basketball player in the world at one time, was spending his offseason teaching people how to drive, and the Celtics have two players with $300 million max contracts. That's where we're at.
It's wild. All right, we got to go to break. One more with Bill Speros. We'll have Joey the Money. We'll wrap. We're here till 10. You listen to 98.5 The Sports Hub.
More Joe Murray coming up on The Sports Hub. on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
It's 20-point games this year. LeBron, open three. 22 seasons, 40 years of age. LeBron James, 50,002 points.
I don't know if they were the good old days anymore.
Kind of depends. Kind of depends on your perspective and other things.
All right, so I got to bring Skaz in on this one because LeBron James scored 50,000 points. Congratulations. Bill, you might not like my opinion. It's just one man's opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. I should put that on a T-shirt. I think LeBron James has passed Larry Bird. I know people in this town say that Larry Bird's the greatest player of all time. I think as far as the position goes, LeBron James has passed Larry Bird. People don't like it when I say that. It's just one man's opinion. Doesn't matter. The guy scored 50,000 points. He's doing it at age 40. But, Skaz and I had this conversation. Who was worse for the NBA, Steph Curry or LeBron James? And we both said Steph Curry. If you watch kids now who play basketball, all they do is shoot threes. When we played, it was up fake, right? Every time you got the ball, step into it, up fake and whatever. Now they're just jacking up shots from everywhere now. So it's not a slight against Curry because he's so likable. It's just the way he changed the game to where I think LeBron might have changed the game was he could control where he wanted to play, right? Or how much money he made or how much everybody else made, right? And Curry's going to make $60 million a year, by the way, when he's like 36, 37, 38. But I want to give LeBron his props for 50,000 points. But if there's one thing I want to get LeBron on, and this is why I wanted to bring Skaz in, it's about his kid. We all agree Bronny's not a bad basketball player. He was a high recruit who has been slighted. Let's just say it what it is. He's not LeBron James. He probably won't be LeBron James. But the Stephen A. angle is where I wanted to go with this. Yesterday, after the game, they beat the Knicks in overtime. And LeBron went out of his way to talk to Stephen A. about the coverage of Bronny James. And I know, Skaz, you had a thought on this. I know you were ready to chomp on this before all the trade stuff that happened today.
Yeah, I'm Team LeBron on this one. I don't really see how you couldn't be. I mean, I guess if you're from Boston, you hate LeBron, you're blinded by that. But name me another 55th overall draft pick in the NBA ever. Just name me one.
I don't know. Was Isaiah Thomas? I don't know.
No, Isaiah Thomas was the last pick.
Last pick, okay. Yeah. I was just throwing, yeah.
Do you remember a second-round draft pick in the NBA ever getting any coverage at all?
Besides, like, Draymond Green, no.
No.
Bronny gets attention because he's LeBron's son. You know who Giannis Antetokounmpo is?
I know who Giannis is, yeah.
You ever heard of Thanasis Antetokounmpo?
I have.
I only know who he is because he's on the bench.
I have.
Yeah.
He's also Greek.
What about Costas? Costas Antetokounmpo.
Yes, he's one of his cousins.
That's right. Yasu Costas.
I remember, maybe some clips of him making
Don't be trying to slip these Greek guys past.
some bad shots, but I don't remember them leading off SportsCenter at any point. I'll also say, are you familiar with Evan Mobley?
Yeah, tall guy. Yeah, Stanford.
Cleveland Cavaliers. Pretty good player, right?
Yeah. He's got a brother.
You ever heard of Isaiah Mobley?
Well, only because I knew they were brothers, like the Lopez guys.
Drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that one either.
In the second round, the 49th overall pick. You ever heard Isaiah Mobley's name mentioned one time?
No.
You think Stephen A. even knows he exists?
No.
No, of course not.
I would say no. Joe, do you know who Cody Williams is?
Nope.
He was the 10th overall pick in the NBA draft this last season.
Cody Williams, Indiana? I don't know.
Colorado.
Oh, Colorado. Okay.
Would you like to guess his season averages?
G League.
He's played 37 games. He averages 4 points, 2 rebounds on 33% shooting.
Top 10 pick.
You think his name's ever been mentioned on Stephen A's show?
No.
No. Bronny James is a little over a year and a half removed from a heart attack, from a legitimate heart attack. He is 22 years old, maybe. He's averaging 22, 5 and 5 on the G League on 39% from three-pointers. The G League stinks. The big man from Iowa there, I can't remember his name, is like Jokic in the G League, basically. So I'm not telling you that lighting up the G League means you're an NBA player. What I am telling you, though, is that the Bronny coverage is out of control. He was a very good to almost great draft pick by the Lakers. Would you like the last 10 guys drafted 55th overall?
Let's do it.
No.
Cody Lalane. You ever heard of him?
Never heard of that man.
All right, this next guy.
I should have brought my pillow.
Yeah, exactly. This next guy you've heard of, Marcus Page.
Maybe.
Great player, UNC, hit the double clutch shot
I know
where
he is.
Chris Jenkins came down and hit the other way. Nigel Williams-Goss, never heard of him.
Nope.
Arnoldos Kolboka, never heard of him.
Nope.
Kyle Guy, Virginia. On that team. Guess what? Never turned into anything. Jay Scrubb, fitting name.
Yeah, played for the
But,
Celtics.
Yeah, there you go. Aaron Wiggins, a guy who, guess what, is actually turned into a solid player for the Thunder. He was drafted in 2021. He is just making an impact this year, scored 19 points last night for the Thunder. So to the people that say Bronny shouldn't be there, doesn't deserve to be there, who's the 54th pick in last year's draft or the 56th pick in last year's draft? You have no idea because they never get talked about. Guess what? Bronny's averaging more points in the G League than those guys are. LeBron James Jr., Bronny James, has played 76 minutes in the NBA. The only reason we know that or hear about him at all is because of Stephen A. LeBron's not saying he should start. He's not saying he should, he's not even letting him travel with the team half the time. So the Bronny thing I just think is way out of proportion. Guys get taken flyers on all the time in this league. Family members get drafted all the time in this league. The Cavaliers did it to, guess what? Make Evan Mobley happy. You didn't think the Los Angeles Lakers were going to make LeBron James happy? It's asinine what the Bronny James conversation has turned into.
Well, if you see or listen to what Stephen A. said in the aftermath, he sort of, I think, I don't want to say took it back, but when he said something to the effect of, well, LeBron James was speaking to me as a father and not as an NBA player. I think that was his way of saying, yeah, I might have gone too far. Because you can obviously make the case of, he's playing in the NBA, so he should or can be subject to whatever scrutiny any other NBA player is. To your point, obviously, no one knows about these other guys. They know about him because he's LeBron's son. Did he get special treatment because he's LeBron's son? Probably. But, judge him for whether or not he can play. If Stephen A. is going out of his way to criticize him or feels that he's some sort of danger or potential threat to the Lakers or is going to get in their way of like what looks like they could actually make like a run to the finals at least, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Stephen A. might have got a little over his skis on this one. And from what I read, he said today, I didn't see any of this, but he said something to the effect of, he's talked to me as a father, and I can understand that. So
I like Stephen A. because he even did the same thing to Jaylen Brown, if you look at it.
Yeah.
Brown wanted a one-on-one with him. They hammered it out.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll tell you, Stephen A. is, man, he gave me 20 minutes last year to talk about sports betting when I was at a conference with him. Oh, no, he's
he's a stand-up man.
Yeah, no, and he's very
I'll
accessible.
at least admit that.
And yeah, to me, I would say, it's been dealt with, right? LeBron, I think you're right. On the way over here, my brother said something to the effect of, he goes, LeBron should have been the MVP the last 15 years in the league. He probably could have been.
There was LeBron fatigue, I would say.
But I don't want to take anything away from him. Look, I was Larry Bird disciple, but you can't argue with numbers. You can't argue with championships. I'm going to say Tom Brady was better than everybody. I have to be intellectually honest and say that certainly if he wins another title, you could maybe do the whole greatest ever thing. I'm not quite there yet, but it's undeniable that he's surpassed Bird in every single.
Wow, you agree with me?
With every single, and the thing about LeBron, the best part about LeBron is he plays defense. He plays both ends. You talk about Steph Curry and the kids putting up threes. Nobody wants to play defense. Larry Bird was a great player. He played defense, and he made his other offensive players better.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, Defensive Player of the Year 6 times in a row. LeBron makes the other players on the court better. That's what made Bird so great. That's what makes LeBron so great, and he just has better numbers. So that could be the argument right there.
I'm wondering if Luka makes LeBron better now. Because you mentioned he made everybody else better. I've seen some outlet passes from Luka that are like.
I think LeBron is getting help generating offense that he didn't have before. I think that's pretty obvious. And it's like, if your thing is like, oh, we have to run the offense through LeBron now, that's not a bad thing. For Luka to be running, making sure he gets a touch, making sure he gets a ball. I think that's sort of the way to win when you have a great offensive player like Luka. And I don't think LeBron, I don't know what he was getting out of Anthony Davis. I think Luka even looks like he's leaned out. Like he looks like he's even lost some weight.
So what happens when you go to LA?
I think he's hitting the gym. He's maybe taking a little of the Ozempic, but he's looking great. And I think and it was the same with Bird, right? Bird made Hall of Famers out of everybody.
Yeah.
And so did Michael Jordan. I don't think you can say that about Steph Curry. That's not a knock. It's just an observation. I think you could say that about LeBron and Bird and Jordan in this conversation. All those three guys made the players around them great. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's like the best thing you want out of a basketball player.
Yep. And the one thing Bird was great, had the injuries, of course. LeBron playing this late.
Well, that's another look. If you haven't guessed, I'm like a Brady disciple. And for me, the fact that Brady won 2 Super Bowls 18 calendar years apart is amazing. That never gets talked about enough. And that's LeBron. He's 40. He's playing out of his mind right now. And unfortunately, Bird broke down for whatever reason, whether it was fixing his driveway or fights at Chelsea's or whatever it was, whatever the reasoning was, he did break down. Mm-hmm. And that was unfortunate for him and for the Celtics because they probably had one more title in that group that they didn't get because of injuries between McHale's foot. I remember being in that locker room. McHale's foot would be ice. Bird would be lying back to the ground. Parrish was nowhere to be found.
Drinking beers.
So, yeah. Oh,
a lot of beer flowing through that locker room.
There was a cooler in the old Celtics locker room, and it was all light beer, and the bottom shelf had orange juice, and that thing was empty at the end of every press avail. I'll tell you that.
All right. Bill Speros is here, everybody. Bill, thank you. You're from bookies.com. You can read your articles in the Boston Herald as well. And you were here. Is Sloan going on tomorrow, too?
Yes. I kid you not. There is a panel at 9 a.m. tomorrow called Are the Nerds Ruining Basketball?
Oh.
And the whole panel is about how three-pointers are screwing up the NBA and what the NBA can do about it. That's at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, so that was circled on my calendar.
People don't like this take, and I'll save it, but if ratings are down and people want, like some people don't like the Celtics, I feel like you could say that maybe the Celtics have hurt with analytics and stuff like that. I'm interested to hear how that one works out tomorrow. All right, Bill, we got to go to break. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We got one more segment to go. Joe me the money. I got to give out my picks for the weekend, and we'll say bye to everybody. Bill, excellent job, man.
Thank you. This was nice to be here as opposed to calling you from a stadium during a soccer game or from the wing of an airplane leaving Charlotte. To actually being here was the sound was good. And I sound like Paul Perillo, so I'll take that as a compliment. But I'm not sunshine. I'm more like gloom and storms.
A former Patriots linebacker reached out to me, too. So he said hi to you. Hey, real quick, to double down on your do you know who the 56th pick in the draft was this year?
Anton Watson?
He got cut by the Celtics.
I'm going to need a meal of KFC if this keeps up on the way home, but I will be executed before I eat it.
He's Bill Speros. Everyone check him out. Bookies.com, Boston Herald. We got Joe Me the Money, and then we're going home here on the Sports Hub.
Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
All right, trades all around the NHL today. Well, the Bruins fire sale Charlie Coyle to Colorado, Brandon Carlo to Toronto, Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers. It's for a conditional second. I'll tell you everybody else who got traded. You know who else got traded today? Geno Smith. Guess where he's going? The Raiders for a third-round pick. And Jalen Brunson is going to miss 2 weeks with an ankle injury tomorrow night. Celtics versus Lakers. Headlines.
Donate now at carsforkids.com. That's cars with a K.
Felger and Maz are just his pregame.
They've been getting wholesale deals for years.
It's Joe Murray on the Sports Hall.
But he hasn't yet. I liked it. Well, Einbein's generator's working good, but his power's out. That's going on in the chat. A lot of stuff going on. Thanks, everybody, hanging out. Well, guys, should we just do Joe Me the Money and go home?
I think that's all we have time for, Joe.
We got to play it, though, right? We got to get everybody ready, because I got 4 bets for this weekend for everybody. 4 bets for
It's a very personal, very important thing. Hell, it's a family motto. Are you ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother. Here it is. Show me the money.
Spot for a Glock. I took a long overflow, but still got it.
Money! Jerry, does that make you feel good just to say that? Say it with me one time, Jerry.
Show you the money.
Oh, no, you can do better than that, Jerry. I want you to say it what you would mean it, brother. Hey, I got Bob Sugar on the other line. I better hear you say it.
Yeah, no. Show you the money.
Not show you. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Yeah. Louder.
Show me the money.
That's it, brother, but you got to yell at me.
Show me the money.
I need to feel you, Jerry.
Show me the money.
Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money.
Main event, minus 10.5 tomorrow. Bing, bang, bang. Get it at 10, though. 10. And finally, for our friends, our soccer friends, MLS soccer tomorrow, right here on the Sports Hub.
I know we were going to do some Revs tonight, Joe, but the Bruins really, they took over.
Revs take on Philadelphia tomorrow?
Yeah, second home game of the year.
Give me the under 2.5 goals in the Revs game tomorrow.
Caleb Porter's defense has been very good.
4 bets. Looking to go 4-0 this weekend. By the way, we're working on Murr Madness, where people can join a March Madness bracket and go against us.
Yes, we're hoping we'll put it in the YouTube chat. We'll tweet it out. We'll get a ton of people in there.
And it's free.
Free.
And if you win, we'll plug you. Maybe you can call in.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Bruins trades. Still thinking about that food from earlier. A donut with whipped cream with a hot dog in the middle. Joe, when are we going to do the McNugget challenge?
He's ready.
Oh, we have full shows on. We have no
full shows next week. Damn it. The following week.
We could do post game though.
Oh boy.
You working an event next week? Oh, we'll work it out. Because we got to try those sauces, baby. Anyways, well, this final hour of the Sports was brought to you by Valvoline and Oil Change. Enjoy a quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit wingandoilchange.com to save 15% off your next draft oil change at Valvoline and Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. Everybody, enjoy your weekend. Celtics, Lakers tomorrow night. I'm telling you right now. This is a measuring stick for me. I'm in. Can't wait for that one tomorrow. All right, our thanks to Street Team Joe, James Scaramazino. Joe Murray will talk to you guys. Actually, I'm on Sunday, 10 a.m. with Leroy. And then back here Monday at 6. We'll talk to you then here on the Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe Murray.